Hey, everybody. Today we're debating Judaism's treatment of non-Jews, and we are starting right now with Andrew's opening statement. Thanks for being with us, Andrew. The floor is all yours.
Thank you very much. For people that don't know me, I've done many debates like this. I debated Jake Shields, Owen Benjamin. We mostly agree. I'm famous to most people, don't tase me, bro. Going and questioning John Kerry at the University of Florida in 2007. One of the things I was questioning him about was why he wasn't trying to impeach George W. Bush. At the time, George W. Bush was pushing to invade Iran. I didn't want George Bush to invade Iran. I'm anti-war. I'm for peace. But at the time, Bush was considering an invasion of Iran, so I went to question him. So the reason I'm here today is not because Daniel has an issue with Israel. I have no problem if people want to question Israel. I think that Netanyahu probably had foreknowledge of the October 7th attacks. I think both sides really don't like each other and do violence. Now, I'm not here to talk to Daniel because I don't want him to speak about Israel. It's the things he says about the Torah that get me. Uh, if you go out in public and you speak on something, you should know what you're talking about. So, Judaism comes from the Torah. The Torah was given to us by God. The Holy Temple in Jerusalem was designated as a place for prayer for all nations. That's in Isaiah. Solomon asked God to listen to the prayers of the Gentiles. That's in the book of Kings. The Talmud is not more authoritative than the Torah. The Talmud is a level of Torah study. In many places, the Talmud is not literal. There are four levels of Torah study. The Talmud is not the deepest. The Talmud is not the primary. It's a level of Torah study. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the author of the Zohar, the highest sage we had, said it would be better for a man not to be born than to just look at the stories of the Torah and take it literally. How much more so for the Talmud, which is esoteric in nature in many aspects. And here's something I especially want to discuss. When people talk about the Talmud, they often cite false or out of context quotes. My favorite example of this is Sanhedrin 59a. Rabbi Yochanan says, this is in 59a, a Gentile who engages in Torah study is liable to receive the death penalty. And this verse is cited by many, many people to show, look, the Talmud says that Gentiles deserve death. Here is the very next paragraph. Let's see if I can do a screen share. The very next paragraph.
You got it ready for you.
Yep.
There it is.
Look at the part that's highlighted. You have therefore learned that even a Gentile who engages in Torah study is considered like the high priest. So people will take the first part of the quote, says a Gentile who engages in Torah study is liable to receive death. That's one opinion from one rabbi. And then the next part says definitively a Gentile who engages in Torah study is considered like a high priest. So if you read the Torah, excuse me, if you read the Talmud and you think that pulling a quote out, oh, this is what it says, this is the law, it's not the case. Almost every single time, if you're quoting from the Talmud or from Mishneh Torah, which is a book written by Maimonides, you have to look at the context. This isn't a trick. This isn't some kind of trickery. In fact, you know what? I'm just going to scroll along to my own notes. This is easier for me. Forbidden to deceive Gentiles. This is what it says in the Talmud. Shmuel said, Shmuel is incredibly righteous. You can read about Shmuel in the Talmud. It is prohibited to deceive people, even to deceive a Gentile. There's a lot of quotes out there. My favorite one is from a book called Libre David, because Libre David doesn't exist. It's a fake quote that says we're allowed to deceive. There, you can look this up. It is prohibited to deceive people, even to deceive a Gentile. That's what it says in the Talmud. This is my favorite. This is my favorite ever. This is Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. This is the founder of the Hasidic movement, the Lubavitch Hasidic movement. He's the great grandson of the Baal Shem Tov, one of our holiest sages. Here is what he said, by the way, about any reference to Gentiles in the Talmud. The wise will understand on their own. This is the introduction of a book called Likutei Moharan. The wise will understand on their own that the Gentiles in whose lands we currently reside are not like those who were in the time of the sages of the Talmud. That means any reference to Gentiles in the Talmud, it cannot possibly be about Christians or Muslims. Those nations did not exist yet. I'll continue with the quote. The latter were idolaters who worshipped the stars in the constellation and were attached to all forms of abomination. They knew not God, nor recognized his holy words. But the nations of our day fear God and honor his Torah. That refers to Christians and Muslims. That refers to Christian and Muslim nations doing kindness and justice in their lands and charity with the Jews who take refuge under their wings. Heaven forbid that we should either say or write anything disrespectful about them. Thus, any reference to nations, Gentiles, and peoples of the world and the like refers only to those idolaters that lived in the time of the mission. Daniel, in a previous lecture he gave at a college in New York, he cited this passage from Kiddushin 72a that said, "Show me Ishmaelites. They are similar to demons of an outhouse." The Ishmaelites at that time did not have Islam. Islam was not created yet when this was said. Islam had not been created yet, so they were not following God. Daniel also cites Maimonides' work, Mishneh Torah. This is a quote that he pulled out in the same lecture. He said, when a Gentile engages with relations with a Jewish woman, if she is married, he should be executed. Actually, he left that part out. But in contrast, a Jewish male enters relations with a Gentile woman. When he does so intentionally, she should be executed. That's what he quoted. Here is the footnote right there next to Maimonides. No, the gloss of the Magid Mishneh, who questions the source for the Rambam's ruling. Rambam is Maimonides, arguing that the passage from Numbers cannot be interpreted as definitive truth. In fact, Daniel has said Maimonides is our greatest scholar, our greatest sage. I have an entire 10-volume set of books called Sefer Chinuch, where Nachmanides, who I consider and many consider a greater sage than Maimonides, the Ramban is what he's called. Maimonides is called the Rambam. It's 10 volumes of him correcting Maimonides in many, many aspects. So Maimonides is not definitive. There's an entire 10-volume set, Sefer Chinuch, that we study where Nachmanides is correcting things that Maimonides got wrong. In that same lecture, Rebbe Eliezer Castile, never even heard of this guy. Daniel said, he quoted him saying that Jews are going to take slaves. That's someone I've never even heard of. There are plenty of people that claim to be a rabbi, a pastor, an imam. They are not following the word of God. They're called false teachers. Here's an example. I don't know if this guy's a false teacher. Daniel can tell me. This guy is giving a lecture. He says that the infidel, meaning non-Muslims, has to give off his clothes, has to take off his clothes and give them to Muslims. I don't know if that's true. I would not say that that's true or say that that's from the Quran or say that's from the Hadiths because I don't know. I haven't looked into it. I'm not a Muslim scholar. I don't go around posting about Islam because I don't know much about it. But this is what an imam, I guess, probably calls himself an imam, has to say about it. That if you're not a Muslim, you have to take off your clothes and give them to a Muslim if he asks for them. Another example, Daniel quoted the Rebbe, Schneerson, who talked about the satanic souls of non-Jews. Mohammed Hijab, I don't know if he's a friend of yours, Daniel. Mohammed Hijab was just clipped on stream telling Sneeko that being Christian is worse than being a homosexual. Now, I don't know about Islam. In Judaism, the penalty for homosexuality is death. I imagine it's probably the same for Islam. So that's Muhammad Hijab saying that being a Christian deserves worse than death. Uh, you can clue me in about that. This is the same imam I quoted earlier. He also said that Christians, Jews, if a Muslim goes to your church, goes to your house, and says that he wants to sleep in your bed, you have to let him sleep in your bed. And if you have to sleep on the floor, that's fine. Now, I don't know if this guy is telling the truth. I wouldn't claim that he's telling the truth about the Quran or about Islam. I haven't studied it. I don't know. I would go and ask someone that really knows about Islam if this is true, because it doesn't seem true to me. In my experience, Muslims, like my favorite example, Hakeem Olajuwon was a great NBA player. Everybody said Hakeem Olajuwon was a nasty guy. He was violent on the court. He found Islam and he became a peaceful man. So my understanding of Islam is that it connects people to God and it's good for people. The idea that if you're not a Muslim, you'd have to give up your bed for a Muslim that knocks on your door and say, "Let me sleep in your bed." I don't know if that's true, but just like Daniel wants to quote people like Rebbe Eliezer Castile, who I never heard of, that says that non-Jews are going to be slaves. That guy is wrong, Eliezer Castile. Never even heard of him. I would imagine some of these guys are wrong. Daniel can tell me if Mohammed Hijab is wrong, or if whoever this guy is wrong. One of the quotes that I've seen everywhere is that the Talmud supposedly permits sex with children. You're looking at something, again, out of context. You don't understand what it's saying. A rich family can arrange a marriage at the age of 3 for their child, but there's not going to be a wedding. There's an opportunity for the richer family to support the family of the youngsters. That's why they're discussing younger ages. It's not all literal. They're having a discussion about different spiritual aspects as well, and they reach a resolution. The Talmud does not permit pederasty. In fact, it's a sin in 3 different ways. The first of which is that you can't hurt another human being. It's right there in Leviticus. The Talmud cannot supersede the Torah. Leviticus tells you you can't hurt another person. Getting close to someone with whom intercourse is forbidden, such as a child, also not allowed. And again, I don't know whether this is permitted in Islam, but the Iraqi parliament is currently looking to pass a bill reducing the age of marriage from 15 to 9. I don't know whether that's permitted in Islam, but I wouldn't go around and say, oh, well, Muslims think that you can have sex with children at the age of 9. I wouldn't assume so just from what the Iraqi parliament is doing. I don't take the Iraqi parliament as the word of Muhammad, and I don't take those people as necessarily good practitioners of the word of Muhammad. I don't know. One of the things that got me especially, Daniel put up, oh, I just closed it. Let's see if I can get it back. Daniel put up this tweet where he said, Jews promote mass rape as a weapon of war. Eshet Yefat Toar. Okay. What he's citing doesn't say that you can rape women. It says you could take a captive woman, a woman who is captive in a war. You can take her home, let her fix herself, give her a month to grieve, and marry her. It's a choice. The woman has a choice. It doesn't say rape. It's not by force. It doesn't say you can take them and then marry them and then divorce them the next day, like the Iraqi parliament also is looking to do. That same bill, they want to legalize pleasure marriages, which apparently is a, I don't know if this is true, again, a CI loophole which allows spouses to fornicate within an hour window of being married and then separate. So you're not allowed to rape at all. Taking a woman by force without her consent is rape, not allowed. Kedushin 21b, which Daniel cited, let's see if I can get this to click, which Daniel cited as an example of allow. Did I click that off or is it still sharing?
It is no longer showing.
Okay, well, let me get that back.
Now it is.
Okay, I'm not great at all the button clicking. Okay, boom. Kedushin 21b, which Daniel cited, it looks terrible. And then the next passage it says, "You shall bring her home into your house." It teaches that he should not pressure her to engage in sexual intercourse during the war. He should first take her into his home. So the past, just like earlier, I showed you the high priest. Oh, a Gentile deserves death. And then the next exact paragraph, it says a Gentile that studies Torah is like the high priest. What Daniel cited is wrong. The very next paragraph, it shows you you cannot pressure her into sexual intercourse. The very next paragraph. So Daniel is he found the worst thing he could find and then
30-second
showed it to
warning.
everybody as this is the truth, but it's not the truth. I'm out of time.
Yes.
Okay, anyway, you could do the same thing for the same tweet that he cited for Mishneh Torah, Shulchan Aruch, Sanhedrin 54b, all of his citations. You just got to keep reading. And then some of them you need to understand more, but never ever does the Torah permit uh, bad behavior against somebody just because they're not a Jew. Go ahead, Daniel.
You got it. Thank you very much for that opening statement. What we're going to do here, folks, is I'm first going to do a couple of housekeeping things for the channel. In particular, I want to let you know if it's your first time here at Modern Day Debate, I'm your host, James Coons. Want to let you know you are welcome no matter what walk of life you are from, Christian, Muslim, atheist, you name it. We're glad you are here. Hit that subscribe button for many debates coming up. With that, we're going to kick it over to Daniel for his opening as well. We do have a more structured format today, so we have 15-minute openings. And I just posted during the very first opening a poll on what you think on this particular topic. We're going to do a pre-debate poll and a post-debate poll. So vote now in the live chat. And with that, Daniel, the floor is all yours.
Okay, hold on. I need to set up my timer. Sorry about that.
No problem.
And okay, I'm ready.
Floor is all yours.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. The Lancet, the top medical journal in the world, published research with the conservative estimate that 186,000 Palestinians have been murdered by Israel after October 7th. That's 8% of Gaza's population. This is the context of this debate that we cannot forget. The topic of this debate is Judaism's teachings on the treatment of non-Jews. Let's start with the mass protests in Israel 2 weeks ago. Jewish protesters were outraged that IDF soldiers were charged with a crime, despite the fact that the soldiers had been caught on tape gang raping and torturing Palestinian detainees. The Palestinian victim they gang raped had been sent to the hospital because the sexual assault was so violent that his rectum burst and he lost the ability to walk. The rape was so horrific that even Israel's greatest ally, the US, is calling for investigations. Meanwhile, Israel's finance minister called the rapists our heroic warriors, and another lawmaker said IDF soldiers should have the right to rape Palestinian prisoners whenever they want. A TV presenter on Israel's most watched news channel also passionately defended the right to rape. Let me emphasize, these Israeli figures don't think the soldiers are innocent. They know the soldiers engaged in brutal rape, but they assert that brutal rape of Palestinians shouldn't be considered a crime. As one Jewish Twitter user explains, according to Jewish law, raping a non-Jewish woman doesn't even count as rape. Let me be clear. Many Jews reject such Jewish supremacism. Even my debate opponent today, Andrew, rejects all this, as do many American Jews. Sadly, Israeli Jews are a different story. In Israel, many Jews believe in racial superiority over Arabs and use this to justify unspeakable atrocities. Where does this Jewish supremacism come from? either from Jewish religious texts directly or from Jewish cultural values influenced by religious texts. Let's look at those texts. My presentation has 3 sections. 1, the lack of punishment for raping and murdering non-Jews. 2, exploitation and cheating of non-Jews. And 3, the law of Masira. Oh, sorry, James. I realized that we didn't share the screen.
Correct.
Hold on. We didn't share the screen in the... hold on, let me share it now. Better?
You got it. All set. I just have to upload or update the little picture in the bottom right.
Sure,
so
no
that
problem.
way it shows you instead of Andrew. Floor is all yours.
Okay, sorry. Back to the presentation. 1 second. That's my fault. Okay. Throughout the presentation, I'll display the relevant passages on the screen. I encourage the audience to fact check me using authoritative Jewish sites like Sefaria.org. First, let's look at how Judaism has no punishment for Jews who rape or murder non-Jews. Is it true there is no punishment for raping a non-Jew? This exact teaching is found in Jewish religious texts. The 2 most authoritative texts on Jewish law are Mishnah Torah by Maimonides and Shulchan Aruch by Joseph Caro. These texts provide an authoritative interpretation of all legal material found in the Hebrew Bible and Talmud, which are considered divinely inspired. If you want to read this passage in the Mishnah Torah, just pause the video now. But to summarize, according to Jewish law, only Jews are human beings. Non-Jews have little value and are even considered animals. Therefore, sex with a non-Jew is forbidden because it's like bestiality. Now, the rule for bestiality is that the animal is to be killed. Maimonides extends this rule to non-Jews. They should be executed, even if they're children as young as 3. So according to Maimonides, who is considered by Jews to be the greatest scholar of Jewish law, if a little 3-year-old non-Jewish girl is raped by an adult Jew, the little girl must be killed because she's like an animal who tempted the innocent Jewish man. I guess Maimonides never heard of the term victim blaming. This is not some obscure text with no relevance, by the way. Large segments of the Israeli population fully believe in the application of this rule, which is why just last week, thousands of Israeli protesters stormed detention camps and were literally banging on the gates, shouting, "We will rape them," demanding to be let into the prisons so that they could violently rape Palestinian prisoners themselves. In a normal country, people would say these are unhinged extremists, but in Israeli media, they describe the situation as a moral debate. Brutally raping prisoners is a debate for Israeli Jews. This follows from the teachings of Judaism. Now, it's not just Jewish rapists that face no punishment. Even Jewish murderers face no penalty according to Jewish law. One famous passage from the Talmud says, "Kill the best of Gentiles. Smash the head of the best of snakes." To be fair, as Andrew pointed out, other Talmudic passages say that outside of war, it's not permitted to kill non-Jews. Nonetheless, Jews who kill non-Jews have legal immunity. There's no punishment for a Jew who murders a non-Jew. The Talmud is very clear on this. With regard to bloodshed, if a Gentile murders a Jew, he's liable. If a Jew murders a Gentile, he's exempt. The same idea is further clarified in the Mishnah Torah. Again, Palestinians are the prime victims. Between 2010 and 2019, the UN documented about 3,600 Palestinians killed by Israeli forces. That equals 1 killing per day for 10 years. Many of the murders are horrific, like the case of 18-month-old baby Ali Dawabsha, who was burned alive when Jewish settlers set his family's home on fire. To this day, Jewish settlers celebrate the burning of baby Ali. Videos online show settlers dancing at a wedding while stabbing a picture of baby Ali in joyous celebration of the murder, chanting, "Baby Ali is on the grill." There was also the recent case of the IDF sicking a military dog on Muhammad Bar, a Palestinian with Down syndrome. After their dog had finished tearing through Muhammad's flesh, the soldiers locked him in a room away from his family to let him bleed to death in agony. "I'm so scared. Please come. Please call someone to come and take me." This is what 6-year-old girl Hind Rajab said on the phone to emergency dispatchers after the IDF shot up her family's car as they evacuated Gaza City. She was the sole survivor surrounded by IDF tanks. The ambulance sent to save her was also attacked by the IDF, killing her rescuers. Later, Hind's body was discovered, and there were 335 machine gun rounds riddling the car she was in. 335 machine gun rounds to kill a 6-year-old and her family. The IDF investigated itself and found no wrongdoing. And technically, they're correct because according to Judaism, Hind Rajab is nothing more than an animal, and filling her tiny body with bullets is nothing more than innocent target practice. Zionists claim that the Israeli government is against killing non-Jews, but human rights groups beg to differ. According to Israeli human rights group Yesh Din, only 7% of settler attacks have led to criminal charges, and only 3% of investigations have led to a conviction. The vast majority of Jewish killers face no consequence. Next, some Jewish apologists might claim that rape and murder of non-Jews is permitted because Israel is in a war situation and Palestinians just won't accept peace. This is a flimsy excuse because, as we saw in the religious texts, none of them make a distinction between war and peacetime. Furthermore, there are many more discriminatory laws against non-Jews that have nothing to do with war and security. The truth is, all traditional religions have some discriminatory rules against non-adherents. But Judaism is the only religion that permits and sometimes commands its followers to secretly exploit other groups and harm them, even in peacetime. Jewish religious texts teach that, 1, it's obligatory to charge non-Jews interest. It's permissible to cheat non-Jews by withholding wages due to them. It's permissible to cheat non-Jews by not paying back loans from them. It's permissible for courts to unfairly favor Jews over non-Jews. It's permissible to steal from non-Jews. 2 important points. First, Jewish legal texts have, admittedly, conflicting opinions on exploiting non-Jews. But these conflicting opinions come from the Jewish concept of Chilul Hashem, or desecration of God's name. This is a basic Jewish legal principle based on the Bible. It holds that Jews should not cheat, steal, trick, or rape non-Jews, not because doing so is objectively wrong, but because it's bad optics. It's basically bad PR for Jews. The principle of Chilul Hashem recognizes that certain Jewish religious rules make Jews look bad, especially the rules allowing Jews to exploit non-Jews. So based on Chilul Hashem, Jews should hide this exploitation or refrain from doing it if non-Jews might find out. This is why there are differing opinions in the Talmud about tricking non-Jews in court, robbing them, cheating them, etc. The rabbis quoted in the Talmud who speak out against cheating, stealing, and robbing non-Jews aren't speaking out because they think it's objectively wrong to do these things to non-Jews. They're just worried about bad optics. Even putting aside appearances, the fact that exploiting non-Jews is at best a matter of debate in the Talmud is shocking. Jewish apologists like to point out that the Talmud is a complex book with so many opinions. But this is not a good defense. Like, how are you debating whether it's legitimate to steal and cheat? How am I supposed to be impressed that one page of the Talmud says don't steal when there's another page in the same book that says go ahead and steal? This ambiguity creates a gray zone where some Jews can justifiably believe that exploiting non-Jews is divinely sanctioned. Other religions don't have this gray zone. Other religions unequivocally condemn secretly cheating people, even non-adherents. Now let's look at some of the evidence. 1, it's obligatory to charge non-Jews interest. Mishnah Torah states it's a positive mitzvah, meaning a divine command, to lend money to a Gentile at interest. Jewish law says you can charge as much interest as possible from non-Jews, even if it will financially ruin them. Number 2, it's permissible to cheat non-Jews by withholding their wages. The Talmud states, as for one who withholds the wages of a hired laborer, for a Gentile to do so to another Gentile, and for a Gentile to do so to a Jew is prohibited, but for a Jew to do so to a Gentile is permitted. Number 3, it's permissible to cheat non-Jews by not paying back loans from the non-Jews. This is also in the Talmud. Abrogating a loan owed to a Gentile is permitted because it doesn't actually entail taking money. The convoluted logic here is that if you don't pay back a loan, that's not actually stealing money, because stealing means actively taking, whereas not paying someone back doesn't require any activity at all. So it's not technically stealing. Number 4, it's permissible for courts to trick non-Jews in favor of Jews. Here, the Talmud mentions the rabbis disagreeing, right? There's a disagreement. You can read the passage on the slide, but basically Jewish judges should try to find some excuse to make sure the Jew wins the case over the non-Jew. Now, some rabbis objected to this, but again, not because they think cheating the justice system is wrong, but because we'll look bad if we get caught, desecrating God's name, as they say. This exploitative behavior is rampant in Israel, which has what human rights groups call a two-tiered justice system. Israelis are tried in civilian courts. Palestinians are tried in military courts. They're not provided legal counsel. They're tortured and forced to confess to crimes they didn't commit. For Israelis, the conviction rate is 10%, but for Palestinians, it's 99.76%. In the recent gang rape case, the Israeli courts found an excuse to free the IDF rapists, even though their crime is right there on tape. It's permissible, number 5, it's permissible to steal from non-Jews. The Talmud says, with regard to robbery, the term permitted is relevant as it's permitted for a Jew to rob a Gentile. The Tosefta Avodah Zarah also permits Jews to steal from non-Jews. To be fair, there are also texts which forbid stealing from non-Jews, as you can see on the slide. But again, the problem is not that stealing from non-Jews is morally wrong. The only concern is desecrating the divine name, Chilul Hashem. Every day, Palestinians are victimized by the Talmudic permission to steal from non-Jews. Every day, highly religious settlers steal Palestinian land by expanding settlements, which are illegal according to international law. The shocking level of theft was on full display several years ago in a viral video where a Jewish man steals an old Palestinian woman's home. The Jew justifies his theft and brazenly states, "If I don't steal it, someone else will." This theft is allowed according to his religion. As we've seen, Jewish texts have many statements endorsing criminal exploitation of non-Jews. The only loose ends are Jewish whistleblowers who could expose this exploitation. Judaism is unique in that it has a law against snitching to non-Jewish authorities. This is known as Masira, and the Jew who engages in such snitching is known as the Moser. Masira is one of the greatest sins in Judaism. It warrants the death penalty, even if the crime being reported is small. The death penalty can be carried out by any Jew without a court order, so basically vigilante justice. The law against Masira applies whether the crime targets Jews or non-Jews. However, Masira is most relevant to crimes against non-Jews. Examples are theft, tax evasion, sexual abuse, smuggling, drug dealing, loan sharking, etc. To be fair, some rabbis make exceptions to the law of Masira for the most extreme violent crimes, especially when the victims are other Jews. The law against Masira is based on the Talmud. A more extensive discussion of the law against Masira is given in the Mishnah Torah. It is forbidden to turn a Jew over into the hands of a heathen, whether physically or financially, even if he happens to be wicked and sinful. An informer may be slain anywhere. As soon as he says that he's about to inform against an individual or his property, even a small amount of money, he has surrendered himself to death. It is a religious duty to slay him. Whoever hastens to kill him attains merit. Again, in the IDF rape torture case, Israeli officials are raging angry, not because of the rape. As we saw, they want to make raping Palestinians an official policy. No, what they're angry about is that someone leaked the video proof. The raping and torturing is not the crime. The crime is revealing the raping and torturing to the world. Well, James, didn't Andrew said I can take the time that I need? It's just 50 seconds over.
If you have 50
it's
seconds
just like
on your
three
clock,
more. It's just a few more sentences. Just please let me finish, James. When you combine all these Judaic laws, you create a criminal society, an apartheid, genocidal state that secretly cheats, steals, rapes, and murders non-Jews with impunity and considers all of that to be holy before God. This is why Israeli society is led by a literal war criminal who defiantly claims that the laws of non-Jews don't apply to him. This is why the leaders of Israel openly say they think it's morally justifiable to starve to death 2 million Palestinians, but non-Jews won't let us do it. This is why Israeli Jews gleefully celebrate the massacres of Palestinian children as a religious holiday. Is it anti-Semitic to point out how sick this society is? If I were to say that Jews are like this because of their genetics, yes, that would be anti-Semitic. But I don't believe that. Because it's not some biological Jewish nature at fault here. The problem is Jewish religious teachings, and this is the challenge my debate opponent has today. If he claims that it's not the religious teachings, then what is his explanation for the horrific behavior we see in Israel? Where is the nightmare coming from? I invite Andrew and all peace-loving Jews to join me in denouncing these teachings and the criminal state that is founded upon them. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that opening as well. We're going to kick it into the rebuttal. So as mentioned, it's a little bit more structured today, folks. Do want to mention that live chat poll is still here at the Modern Day Debate live chat. If you want to check into the pre-debate poll and let us know your thoughts on this particular topic, as well as we're going to have a Q&A at the end. If you have any questions, feel free to submit them in the Modern Day Debate live chat with @ModernDayDebate, or if you use a super chat, it pushes your question to the top. Motherfather. I was muted that whole time. Thanks for your patience, folks. I was muted there for about 30 seconds. Long story short, we are going to jump into the rebuttals, but first, a couple of housekeeping things. First, if you happen to have a question for the Q&A, do submit that in the Modern Day Debate live chat by tagging me with @ModernDayDebate, or a super chat will push your question to the top of the list for the Q&A. With that, thank you very much. Andrew, the floor is all yours for your 7-minute rebuttal.
Okay. I know Daniel had to have been thinking to himself when he's citing Maimonides or citing some things that I already rebutted before he even spoke. So that must have been interesting for him to continue, even though I already nailed it on those things. But we can do it again one more time. Let's do a screen share. Boom. Okay, what Daniel got wrong. This is one of my favorite quotes. So he quoted it right there from Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. It says, "Kill the best of the Gentiles." If you look it up, that quote correctly translated says heathens. It doesn't say Gentiles, it says heathens. And just like I read to you before you started, the wise will understand on their own that the Gentiles in whose lands we currently reside are not like those who were in the time of the sages of the Talmud. This is from Rebbe Nachman. This is the founder of the Hasidic movement. You can't say that this is what it says about what they can do to us. You're not the Gentiles from the Talmud because you're not the heathens of the Talmud. They were idolaters who worshiped the stars, the constellations, and were attached to all forms of abomination. You, as much as you might want to be, are not the heathens of the Talmud. You're just not. The penalty for rape, by the way, no rape penalty. I looked it up. There's penalty for rape in Israel. Whether they misapply it, whether the justice system there is skewed, it probably is. It probably is. That has no connection to the Torah. That's if you look, the Ben Ish Chai, a great tzaddik, he told the Jews not to take the land by force in Israel before they took land by force in Israel. So they didn't listen to the tzaddik. They didn't listen to the righteous. They're doing what they're doing. That's not connected to Talmud or Torah. If they're misapplying law in Israel, that's not connected to Torah. I have no challenge there at all. And that's another funny thing. You talked about they're protesting for their right to rape. Okay, there were also Israelis that protested against Netanyahu. Very large protests against Netanyahu because I agree with you. He is a war criminal. He's a very bad guy. He's probably in the planning of 9/11. He's a bad dude. But that has no connection to the Torah. Netanyahu doesn't even keep Shabbat, okay? Look up what the Torah says about a Jew that doesn't keep Shabbat, all right? That's Netanyahu. All right, you said a non-Jew is not even considered human. That's what you threw out there. I showed you already. You have therefore learned that a Gentile who engages in Torah study is considered like a high priest. I mean, that might include you. I'm not sure. I'm not sure you're looking at all the Talmud. You might be considered very high. I'd have to ask somebody. I'm not making a judgment. But to say for yourself that, we're not even considered human, that's insane. That's insane. And I showed you before you spoke that that's insane. But you know, if you want to learn or not, go ahead. But what you said is not true. Quoting Maimonides, again, I've got a 10-volume set called Sefer Chinuch, where Nachmanides corrects Maimonides. Maimonides, not the highest sage, not the most righteous tzaddik. He wrote a lot. Some of the things that he said were right. Some things he said were wrong. And even the thing that you cited about it, there's a footnote. He's wrong about that. And I already showed you that. You said it's permissible to cheat non-Jews and not pay them. Just looking it up real quick. The obligation to pay workers on time, and I've run across that before, and you can look it up, required. And with my employees, I make sure I pay immediately because we're required. Required. By the way, it's right there. Thou shalt not steal. You see that one right there? Thou shalt not steal. Not paying is stealing. You're not allowed to steal. And even in the Talmud, where we know there's these debates, they're debating everything. It's esoteric. There's a lot of weird stuff going on there if you don't understand what's happening. The conclusion is, and you cited it yourself, you can't steal. So, and there it is written in stone. Thou shalt not steal. You can't steal, Daniel. Torah and Talmud, neither one lets you steal. Crushing interest, that's another thing. You're not even allowed to charge crushing interest to a non-Jew. You're right. There are two different laws for Jews and non-Jews in regarding interest. But the interest has to be fair. It's not allowed to be crushing. There's an article about that too. You're not allowed to crush people with interest. So if you have usurious rates of interest, that's wrong. So everything you're saying, just wrong. Just wrong. Which is why I wanted to do this debate. You don't know what you're talking about. And, going forward, I hope that you learn and, figure some of this stuff out. But you've said so many things that are not true. I looked up some of the other statements you've made before. I saw, this is a quote from you, from Daniel. I don't know how to say your last name. Great Jewish first name. I told you. I love the name Daniel. You can convert, but you won't have the same status as an ethnic Jew. That's what you said, Daniel. I was taught Jewish converts have the highest souls. And according to the Ari, and what a fortuitous day, this is the Yortzeit of the Ari, one of our highest tzaddiks right now, the Ari HaKadosh, Rav Yitzhak Luria, he said, Jewish converts can even host the souls of tzaddikim as a perfect merkava. It's a perfect vessel, a perfect chariot. That's how righteous the converts are. And you said you won't have the same status as an ethnic Jew. Wrong. Totally wrong. The Talmud lists many mitzvot that obligate us to treat Jewish converts with exemplary behavior. Exemplary. So you're wrong. You called the Talmud the most important source of Jewish law. Wrong. That's the Torah, which prescribes the holidays, kosher laws, Shabbat, etc. You don't know what you're talking about. They don't go around and talk about the Quran says this and the Quran says that. I don't know. I haven't studied it. I would assume that you study the Quran way more than you study the Torah, because if you study the Quran as little as you study the Torah and the Talmud, you wouldn't know your own book at all. You must know the Quran much more than this, because you don't know the Torah. You should speak about the Quran. You should teach people wisdom from the Quran. You should not speak about the Torah. You don't know what you're talking about at all. This is another one I heard. You tweeted that Jews believe in many gods, that there was let's see if I can pull this up real quick, that there was old stuff in the Torah that we deleted that said that we believed in many gods at one point. This deep, polyistic material in the Torah, brother, this is what it says. 10 Commandments. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. There's no polytheism in Judaism. And I know in this tweet, you were trying to give credit to Islam as if Islam started monotheism. It just didn't. It just didn't. The Torah came first, and then the Christians, and then the Muslims. You didn't start monotheism. You can't take credit for it. A guy named Abraham, the father of Ishmael, who his descendant, Muhammad, gave you Islam. We're all sons of Abraham, but you can't take credit for monotheism. Abraham is the man. Let's see if I had anything else I really wanted to talk. Oh, yeah. I hear that Muslims have great respect for Jesus. You can express that if you like. Jesus said that he didn't come to change the law. So if you claim that we were polytheistic before Islam, Jesus said that he didn't come to change the law. And correct me if I'm wrong, the Quran has great respect for Jesus. So I don't think Jesus was polytheistic, and he
30
didn't
seconds.
come and say that there was a polytheism in the Torah or in anything that we were doing. So you got a lot. I got more. There's a lot that you say that you do not know what you're talking about.
We'll jump into the next rebuttal, which is from Daniel. This will also be 7 minutes. If you haven't yet, folks, hit that like button if you're enjoying this debate, which, hey, if you're here, you probably do. So thanks for your support. And with that, Daniel, floor is all yours.
I need to share my screen again, James.
You got it. Ready for you.
Okay, so can you see?
Yes.
Let me fix my own screen now. Okay, so there was not really a response to much of what my opening statement says. It seems like Andrew wants to just go and interrogate every single debate and presentation that I have. But I'm going to focus on the points that he actually raised and the points that I raised in this debate. So I said there's no legal punishment for murder of non-Jews. He didn't have a response to this. He just says that, oh, kill best of Gentiles means heathens. So it's not actually referring to people who are Gentiles today. Okay, but what about the legal punishment? So you as a Jew can kill a non-Jew. And according to Maimonides, according to the Jewish majority of the Jewish scholars, all the Jewish scholars and the sages, there is no legal punishment for killing a non-Jew. Now, this is not the same in Islam. It's not the same in any other religion, basically. This is something unique to Judaism. You didn't respond to that. Now, you're citing a lot of modern rabbis. Like, this is a typical Jewish apologetic. You cite rabbis from the past 300 years. They're influenced by Islam, or they've been influenced by Europe and the Enlightenment. If people note, a lot of the names that you cited were not even the earliest authorities, the earliest rabbis in the Talmudic period. This is a typical Jewish apologetic. The other thing, I acknowledged in many of the claims that I made about Jews being allowed to cheat non-Jews, to steal from them, not give them their wages, not pay back their loans, etc., that there are, within even the Talmud itself, you find differing opinions, but it's just on the basis of Chilul Hashem. We don't want bad PR for Jews because that actually negatively affects us as Jews. So he didn't respond to that, or Chilul Hashem. He just said that, oh, Daniel doesn't know the Talmud because look at this opinion. Yeah, I know that. I acknowledge that in the debate. I acknowledge that in the opening statement, rather. So it's easy. A lot of religions do this. I don't do this. I don't cherry pick the most liberal, the most, enlightenment-friendly verses and opinions, and then say, oh, see, this is the religion, everyone, this is Judaism. That's dishonest. You have to explain the statements in the Talmud that say the exact opposite. And I acknowledge that in the opening statement, that when you have both sides, like, oh, you can steal and oh, you can't steal, then that creates a gray zone of ambiguity, and you have many Jews today who take the worst interpretations. That's why I cited Israeli society. That's why I cited all of the crimes being committed in Israel against non-Jews, against Palestinians. And many Americans, unfortunately, support the Israeli state. So they have to come to terms with what is causing this shocking behavior that we see within the state of Israel. And it's not all related to wartime. It's not all related to security issues. So you also didn't address Masira. You quote, like, thou shalt not steal. Is this a joke? Like, all of the rabbis interpret this, or not all, I shouldn't say all, many interpret this as thou shalt not steal from Jews. Because guess what? The Talmud says you can steal in certain circumstances. So to reconcile this contradiction between Torah and Talmud, they say, well, thou shalt not steal is referring to Jews only, Jews stealing from non-Jews. You're claiming that the Torah is more important than the Talmud, not according to many Jewish authorities. The teachings of the Talmud stand above all other laws. They are more important than the laws of Moses, says Rabbi Ismail, Rabbi Chamber, etc. Rabbi Chamber. The decisions of the Talmud are the words of the living God. Jehovah himself asks the opinion of the earthly rabbis when there are difficult affairs in heaven. Rabbi Menachem, commentary on 5th book, Jehovah himself studies the Talmud standing. He has such respect for that book. It's more wicked to question the words of the rabbis than that of the Torah. It goes back to the doctrine of the Torah is not in heaven, the oven of Achnai, which is also mentioned in the Talmud. So these are things that my audience will be familiar with, and I've discussed many times. The Talmud is at the same level, if not higher, than the Torah, according to very authoritative rabbis. Now, Andrew said in his opening that this is the biggest example of a misconception that Gentiles deserve death if they study the Torah. Well, this is what Sanhedrin 59a says. It says, a Gentile who engages in Torah study is liable to receive the death penalty. So that's that paragraph. Go to the next, and you see what he cited. The punishment of it, or no, this continues. The punishment of a Gentile who studies Torah is like that of one who engages in intercourse with a betrothed young woman, which is execution by stoning. That's the next paragraph. Andrew doesn't cite that. Then we go to the paragraph that he does cite here. You have therefore learned that even a Gentile who engages in Torah study is considered like a high priest. So, oh, okay, that wipes out everything that we read before, right? Right, Andrew? The thing is, he doesn't continue. He doesn't continue reading. Go to the very next paragraph. The Gemara answers. There in the Baraita, the reference is to a Gentile who engages in the study of their 7 mitzvot. Oh, so the Noahide laws. Other than that, if you study the Talmud, if you study the rest of the Torah beyond the Noahide laws, then the execution applies. Oh, you missed that paragraph, Andrew. You missed that. So this is like all of his apologetics is just cherry picking. He literally is not reading the very next paragraph. Okay, and then we go to the Mishnah Torah. Maimonides. So Mishnah Torah is commenting on the Talmud. It's the authoritative legal interpretation of the Talmud, not what Andrew cherry picks. And it says a Gentile who studies the Torah is obligated to die. They should only be involved in the study of their 7 mitzvot. Okay? Only the 7 mitzvot, the Noahide laws. So he referenced, where is the reference to slavery coming in the end of times when the Messiah comes according to the Talmud? Gentiles will have, or every Jew will have 2,800 servants, meaning slaves. This is in Shabbat 32b. That's the reference since he asked for it. Sex with 3-year-olds, so many citations that we can give from Rashi, the most authoritative rabbis are saying that, are mentioning that Isaac is married to Rebekah when she was 3. Isaac, obviously, the son of Abraham, Jewish law holds that since Isaac had sex with a 3-year-old, this provides a norm of permissibility for all later Jews to follow. The Talmud endorses such a view, hence it teaches that older Jewish women are permitted to have sex with 3-year-olds. This is reflected in many passages. One is Nida 44b. A girl who is 3 years and 1 day old, whose father arranged her betrothal, is betrothed through intercourse, as the halachic status of intercourse with her is that of intercourse in all halachic senses. There you go. You know, what more do you need? This is same ideas reiterated in Sanhedrin 55b, which states, come and hear a resolution from Mishnah, a girl who is 3 years and 1 day old, whose father arranged her betrothal, is betrothed with intercourse. So you have intercourse with a 3-year-old, and because of that intercourse, you are now married to her. That is the Jewish law. So we can go on. There's so many references here that I can cite, but I'm running out of time here. Again, he's giving the standard Jewish apologetic that he's reading like from, I don't know, Gill Student or something. Like this is very low level. You have to read the full context. And even if there are differing opinions, the Talmud says don't steal. The Talmud says don't harm others. Well, you have to look at other passages in the Talmud that say the opposite. And then you create this ambiguity that justifies the worst kinds of crimes, atrocities, the worst behavior. And this is what Palestinians have to suffer day in and day out because of these Jewish texts.
We are going to jump into the next rebuttal, which is 5 minutes from each speaker. So this next one is going to be from Andrew. And I want to remind you folks, if you were enjoying this debate, hit that like button. We do appreciate it. Andrew, the floor is all yours.
That was very amusing. That was very entertaining. Okay. The Torah over the Talmud. Maimonides himself, who you like to cite, Maimonides himself asserts that the Talmudic sages speak allegorically and can be mistaken. That's from Maimonides himself, who you like to cite. The Talmud is not infallible, and no, the Talmud does not rule over the Torah. Dead wrong. Dead wrong. I don't know who you were citing, but you're dead wrong. No offense. I'm not trying to offend you, but you're dead wrong. And in the next paragraph, where we were talking about the high priest, and you show that it says a Gentile who studies is like the high priest. It's the minimum requirements. The Noahide law, studying the Noahide law, and even studying, it means, you know what the Noahide laws are? It means don't murder. It's things like that. So it's a very low bar to reach. I don't know if you know that. Uh, Rivka, they said yes, she was betrothed at 3, like I spoke earlier. She was married at 20. She didn't engage in anything at the age of 3. She was married at 20. So again, you don't know what you're talking about. It's like the people that say Aisha was, at the age of 6, and then I listen to imams that say no, she was much older. It's like the exact same thing. Like no, Rivka at the age of 3 was not having sex. That's an insane idea. The penalty for murder. I looked this one up. The penalty for murder in Israel, it says life sentence. So that's what I found. And that's not even the Torah. That's the secular state of Israel. Yeah, you're not allowed to murder non-Jews. I don't know why you think that that's a thing. You obviously get punished for murder even in Israel. Uh, Obviously, they have some injustices there, but I'm sure you can go and find many, many murder convictions from people that murdered non-Jews. Uh, yeah, this is another quote that you said. A 9-year-old who has gone through puberty is not a toddler. So you might want to explain that one that you said sometime. That was an odd quote I found from you. Let's see what else there is. Oh, this is crazy. Judaism is the only religion in human history, according to you, Daniel, which includes a sacred command to kill all Christians and destroy their religion. No, absolutely not. And I assume that you got to this by finding there's a mitzvot that says to go and kill the heathens. This is Moshe David Valley, and this he was speaking about Christians. He said, for the Christians that believe Jesus is God, Jesus is not. Christians are not idolaters. There was a great tzaddik named Honi the Circle Drawer, and the Jews would go to Honi and they would say, "Father, Father, please bring the rain." Tony would then tell God, the people do not know the difference between you and me, like the Christians don't know the difference between Jesus and God, but they would not be punished for not knowing the difference because they might not have knowledge of the upper worlds. So, no, Christians are not idolaters, and no, there's no command in Judaism to kill all the Christians. That does not exist. That is crazy. And then finally, I just like to, you keep bringing up the Israeli. They're not doing so good in Israel. I'm not a fan of a lot of what they're doing in Israel, but how are the Muslims treating Christians in Europe, Daniel? Are they treating the Christians nicely in Sweden, in Germany, in the UK? And I'm not going to blame the Quran. I'm not going to blame the Quran because there's rape, because there's murder of Christians by Muslims in huge numbers in Europe. I'm not going to blame the Quran. I'm just going to note, are they not following the book? Because, like Netanyahu, I told you, Netanyahu's not following the book. So I'd like to know from you, are the Muslims that are raping and murdering in Europe, they're not following the Quran, right? They're not following it. I don't believe that they are. And I wouldn't go around and say that they do. Just like I wouldn't say that Netanyahu follows the Talmud when he doesn't. So let's see if there's anything else I wanted to talk to you about. Oh yeah, this was a fun one. You know what? I'll save that. I'll save that. Is my 5 minutes up, or do I have more time?
You have a minute 30 left.
Oh, a minute 30. Okay. Uh, And this was a fun one too. See, I would never go and tweet this and act like it's true. Okay, this gets floated around. It said this is supposedly a scholar of the Quran. He said a man is still considered pure when he releases lust with a sheep or a goat. Now, I don't see this guy as like it's. This is a meme that's floating around. I don't take it at face value. I don't believe that it's real. But you, for some reason, will take. I forget the guy's name. Some rabbi I never even heard of, and make him the authority. Like you're citing people that are not the authority. Like you're trying to create authority in people. Maimonides, he knows everything. 10-volume set of Sefer Chinuch. Nachmanides correcting Maimonides. Talmud, it's number one. The people you're citing for that, wrong. And even Maimonides himself said, wrong. No, the Torah reigns supreme. The Torah is king. And this was a lot of fun. I hope that people learn from this. And I think there should be more debates like this. That was good.
You got it. We'll kick it over to Daniel for his 5 minute rebuttal as well. Daniel, the floor is yours for 5 minutes.
Can I share my screen?
Yeah, you bet. I forgot to mention, Andrew, if you're able to once you're done sharing, I can do it on my end as well. Let's see. Stop sharing. Okay. And
You're better.
then
You're better at the buttons than me.
no problemo. We're ready for you, Daniel. And let me just adjust the little picture here. Folks, if you haven't noticed, we have many people in live chat. Do get your live chat questions in early, as we expect to have a number of them. And with that, thank you very much. Daniel, floor is all yours.
Yeah, so again, I cited NIDA 44B, that the marriage happens through the intercourse, and it can happen through, or the marriage happens through intercourse. It can happen as young as 3 years old. You just gloss over that, or you don't even acknowledge the text, but everyone saw it on the screen. So I encourage you all to look up that reference on Safaria, and you can read it for yourself, the full context. You cited that, oh, well, there are imams. You listen to some imams and they say, well, Aisha was not 3 years old or 6 years old when she was married to the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him. I agree. There are apologists who are distorting Islam. I agree. I'm the one who says that, well, all of the Islamic texts, the authoritative Islamic texts, like the Hadith, say that she was 6. And she was married at 6, and then the marriage was consummated at 9 years old. I defend that. I have debates literally on that topic. What you're citing is like these imams, like your approach, the apologetic approach of saying, oh, no, there's someone from the 19th century who says that's wrong. Like that kind of dishonest approach. Yeah, those imams who follow like that kind of model, like you, yeah, I disagree with them. I think that they are just as dishonest and they're just as distorting of the religion as you are when it comes to Judaism. Now, you make this kind of smear against Muslims in Europe that they're going around and they're raping and they're murdering. So what? These are immigrants, whatever, even if it's true what you're saying. I'm citing your texts, your religious texts. I'm citing your highest authorities. Yeah, I didn't say Maimonides is considered infallible, but he's considered to be the greatest legal or scholar of Jewish law, correct? Dispute that. Is he making like such a big mistake as saying that, yeah, if an adult Jew has sex with a 3-year-old non-Jew, then you kill the non-Jewish girl? Did you address that? I showed the black and white what Maimonides says. So if you want to denounce Maimonides, don't just say, oh, he's fallible. Okay, I knew that already. But denounce him as a vile, disgusting, degenerate, immoral. I want to hear those words from you, Andrew. If you're as shocked as the rest of us about what Maimonides says about non-Jews being raped at 3 years old. You're citing memes of Zakir Naik as like what Islam says or what Islam determines. I'm citing Maimonides. I'm citing the Mishnah Torah. I'm citing Joseph Caro. I'm citing Rashi. Like that's the difference between what I'm doing in this debate and what you are doing in this debate. The issue about Yafat Tuar. So this is the captives. Like you're denying, again, very clear texts that say when the captive is taken, the Yafat Tuar is the beautiful Gentile that is taken from the battlefield. And you are, again, simplifying what the Mishnah Torah says. She is taken captive, meaning she is forced to be in the house. She is forced to shave her head, for example. She is forced into that situation. It's not how you described it in the most apologetic way. Now, I agree, or I will admit that in Islam we do have concubinage. In Christianity, there is also a history of concubinage. There's important differences, of course, but this is something universal, and I've pointed this out in many debates. But you're engaging in the same kind of apologetics that like liberal Muslims or liberal Hindus or these people who are dishonest, they distort the text, they change the text in order to appeal to a liberal, modern, feminist audience. That's dishonest. Look at what the actual authorities said 800 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 1,400 years ago, before the Enlightenment, before this modern feminist hegemony that has distorted all religions and bent them in favor of its values. Look at what the previous pre-modern scholars said, and it says very clearly in Judaism, we find the most shocking things. As I described, which you have rebutted none of them, literally none. You still haven't talked about Masira and the Moser. Did you miss that part? That was like 1/3 of my presentation. Maybe you didn't see that on Gil Student, and that's why you have no response. Maybe do some searches right now. But law of Masira is shocking. This encourages criminal conspiracy. If a Jew commits a crime, a major crime, even sexual assault, abuse, anything like that, if another Jew reports it, that Jew who is reporting it, whistleblowing it, deserves death. According to the Talmud, according to Maimonides. So if you want to say, don't just say, oh, Maimonides is fallible. No, denounce Maimonides. Denounce the Talmud. Don't say, oh, the Talmud is not infallible. Denounce the Talmud. Say it's disgusting. These verses or these passages that Daniel you're citing, they're disgusting. I find them vile. That's what we need to hear from you, Andrew. Not, this kind of apologetic that tries to preserve the honor or the dignity of the rabbinic tradition. No, it needs to be thrown under the bus. It needs to be denounced because guess what? There's so many Jews, unfortunately, not you, I understand that, who are taking that as God's word.
We'll jump into the open dialogue. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for those rebuttals. And thanks very much, folks, for your questions, for the Q&A at the end. With that, Andrew and Daniel, the floor is all yours for that open dialogue.
How much time?
I just got to that last bit of stuff. Nobody I'm citing is a feminist. That's a weird take. I'm not citing feminists. My citations in Judaism, Nachmanides over Maimonides. Feminism wasn't even created as a movement yet. I don't know what you're talking about. If you're saying that I'm citing some meme in Islam, yes, I didn't claim to have any knowledge of Islam. You're claiming to have knowledge of Judaism, and my citations are superior to yours. Again, you don't know what you're talking about. No offense.
What does Nachmanides say about a Jew who kills a non-Jew?
I didn't interrupt you one time. There's a 10-volume.
Yeah, because those are the time sections. This is open dialogue. Like, you can't just give a monologue now. You made a point, and I'm responding to it. You can't just go off.
I still don't intend to.
You made a point, and I'm responding. Where does Nachmanides denounce the sex with 3-year-olds?
I get it.
Where?
You got to interrupt. I get it. You got to interrupt. I get it. Nachmanides, there's a 10-volume set called Sefer Hinuch where he corrects Maimonides on many things. And in the exact quote that you cited from Maimonides, I showed people in Sefaria where there's a footnote saying that he's wrong. Right there on Sefaria. That's not from Nachmanides, it's from another Sadiq, but it says it right there. I already told you that multiple times. I don't know if you're not listening. And I don't know what Gil Student is. You've said that multiple times. No idea what that is. You want me to respond to every single thing that you say. Buddy, I got a time limit. You say a lot of things.
There is no time limit. This is open dialogue. This is open dialogue.
I had a 15-minute, a 7-minute, and a 5-minute. I can't respond to everything that you say wrong. If we're responding to everything you've said wrong on the internet, we'd be here all day. I don't have time.
You don't have to. You have to respond to what I've said in the debate. That's why the debate is just about respond to the opening statement. Do you not understand how these debates work?
Tell me about, do I have to give clothes to a Muslim? What was that about? The imam or whoever he was saying that if a Muslim comes to me and says I have to give him my clothes, is that imam a liar? Is he wrong? Is he telling the truth?
Can I answer now?
Yeah.
You can cite, as I said, you can cite people, imams that have said different things that, whatever, I'll find objectionable. But the point is you have to cite authoritative texts that back up what those imams say. So that's why I didn't just find any random rabbi and say, oh, look at what this rabbi says. Yeah, I cited Rabbi Keshtiel in another presentation. Yes. Rabbi Keshtiel is the head rabbi of B'nai David, the top yeshiva in Israel. Okay, fine. You don't care what Rabbi Keshtiel says, but I didn't even include it in this debate.
That's why
I didn't even include that in this debate. I'm citing Maimonides, Joseph Caro, Nachmanides. Okay, he disagrees with Maimonides. So what? I acknowledge that. But that doesn't mean that what Maimonides is saying shouldn't be denounced. Shouldn't be seen as something vile. Why is Maimonides still seen as a great scholar by Jews? Why don't they just say, this is a vile, disgusting person? Why do we care at all what he says? That's not what Nachmanides says. Nachmanides gives due respect to Maimonides. And so do you, and so do other Jews. Why? When he's saying that there's no legal punishment for a Jew murdering a non-Jew. If a Jew rapes a 3-year-old, you kill the 3-year-old non-Jew. Like, why isn't that denounced, I wonder, by you? You're refusing to denounce it in this debate. Can you do that for us?
2 minutes. Yeah. You say that, oh, I only cited great people. And then I point out, Rabbi, I don't even know his name. Thanks for reiterating, Kestiel. Oh, but I only did that in a different debate. I didn't do it here because I knew you would call me on it. So when I do it somewhere else, it's okay. When I'm here against you, and you know that what I'm saying is citing some guy and not citing some actual Sadiq, oh, then it's okay. So yes, when I cited that imam, I don't know who he is, but you didn't answer to it. Is
If
it
you don't
is it
know, if you don't
correct?
know who it is, how can
Is
I
it
know what is
correct?
was the citation? I've never
No,
heard of
but
this.
you know your religion, don't you?
No,
Tell
a
me.
Muslim.
Is it
Here, I'll show you the citation. Here, you want to know a response?
yes,
I'll read you.
do I have to give you my clothing?
No, here, let me read you the hadith on this issue. Hold on a second. Let me just. I have it on the
Thank
slide.
you. I'd like to learn something, please.
Okay. First of all, it's obligatory to pay back loans. You want me to share the screen so it's easier to see?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. And I also apologize for interrupting you. I will not do that again.
Okay.
Hold on. Yeah, so this is a hadith from Sahih Bukhari, our most authoritative hadith collection. And this is narrated by Jabir ibn Abdullah. When my father died, he owed a Jew 30 pounds of dates. I requested him to give me respite for repaying, but he refused. I requested Allah's Messenger, the Prophet, to intercede with the Jew. Allah's Messenger went to the Jew and asked him to accept the fruits of my trees in place of the debt, but the Jew said no. Allah's apostle, the Prophet entered the garden of the date palms, wandering among the trees, and ordered me, saying, pluck the fruits and give him his due. So you have to pay back. You can't just steal a non-Muslim's property. Another hadith, it's whoever kills a person protected by a treaty, meaning like peace treaty, like a non-Muslim from another land, will never smell the fragrance of paradise. Its fragrance can be found a distance of 40 years of travel. This is also in Bukhari, authoritative hadith. So you can't kill, you can't take a loan and then not pay it back. You can't cheat. If anyone wrongs a person protected by a covenant, violates his rights, burdens him with more work than he's able to do, or takes something from him without his consent, then I will be his advocate on the day of resurrection. Also, another authoritative hadith collection. So covenant, a person protected by a covenant means a non-Muslim, but it's like from a land where there's a peace treaty. He's coming. He has permission to be in Darul Islam, in the land of Islam, and he's working or he's trading. He's a merchant. He's a business person. His rights cannot be violated. You can't take the clothes off of his back. So if a random imam says that, if a Muslim asks a non-Muslim or demands to take his shirt, you have to give it to the non-Muslim has to give it to him. This is something I've never heard before, and I'm not an apologetic person. I'm someone who defends marriage to minors. So I'm not an apologetic. I'm a person who defends slavery in Islam. I'm not an apologetic person. But what you're describing is false. Non-Muslims have rights under hardcore Sharia Islamic law, and whoever does not give them their rights. In this hadith, you're seeing the Prophet, peace be upon him, basically cursing that person. You won't smell the fragrance of paradise. A Muslim, you won't smell the fragrance of paradise for violating the rights of a non-Muslim. Now compare that to the Jewish texts like the Talmud that I cited.
Well, I think that what you just said is what I expected. I expected that if you actually study the words of Muhammad, like our faiths are very, very similar. Every time that I look into it, I find that they're very, very similar. So, your misunderstanding of the Talmud aside, when you get to those parts of the Talmud that you acknowledge that say we're not allowed to steal, that is the conclusion and that is what is correct. The fact that there's 73 volumes of the Talmud, that like if I had to get the whole set of the Talmud, it's 73 volumes. There's a lot of stuff in there, and they're thinking about everything in the universe, and they're doing thought experiments. They're doing things that are very deep and esoteric. It's not all literal. So if you're reading the Talmud and you're expecting to get to like, oh, it's this. No, it's all of this big thing, and the conclusion is not usually the little thing that's clipped out. But I appreciate you teaching me some Islam, because that is what I expect. Our faiths both, they go to God. God doesn't allow you to hurt other people. So yeah, thank you for teaching me some Islam. I appreciate that.
You know, I have a lot of positive things to say about Jews. I have a lot of positive things. Like, for example, you began this debate and you actually did denounce Netanyahu. You did denounce these crimes that are being committed. And that is a big thing because unfortunately a lot of Jews will not do that. So I highly appreciate what you did. I think it's brave. I think it's brave for you to come out and say that. And I also believe, I don't think that you're lying about your beliefs. I do think that you're expressing what you actually believe. I don't think you're just saying something and then going behind closed doors and saying, oh, yeah, we're going to cheat these Gentiles. I don't think that's you. I don't think that's many Jews in America. That being said, the problem is this is where Islam and Judaism differ. These good values that you're describing, yes, that's shared. But the texts and the way that the legal system, like the derivation of law, works in Islam and Judaism is very different. Because in Islam, I've mentioned like these hadith about like not violating the rights of Jews. You don't find contrary hadith that say, yeah, violate their rights, steal from them, and etc. There's not that same kind of ambiguity or contradiction in the texts at that level. Now, when it comes to the Talmud, unfortunately, there is that back and forth. Like, as many Jews will note, a Jewish apologist, that is a conversation that you have the Mishnah, you have the Gemara, you have rabbis who are quoted, who are disagreeing with each other. But the problem that creates is that you have Jews who are not as nice as you, not as moral as you, and they look at those sections of the Talmud and they actually will use that to legitimate exploitation. And that's why it's important to cite the actual behavior of many Jews in Israel, because they're more religious, first of all, than American Jews. They are, and they are committing a lot of these crimes, and they think that they're religiously justified. And this is causing a humanitarian catastrophe. It's causing ethnic cleansing. It's causing all these atrocities that I read about, and I know 100% you disagree. You hate this stuff as well, but it requires being honest about what the texts are teaching.
So all I can tell you is supremacists exist. You know, I've seen videos. I quoted from you one of them. There's Muslim supremacists, there's Christian supremacists, there's Jewish supremacists, there's white supremacists, black supremacists. Supremacists exist. The fact that they're going to take the Talmud out of context, say, oh, a Gentile that studies the Torah deserves death, and ignore that it says, no, a Gentile that studies the Torah is like the high priest. Like,
Of
I
the
can't
Noahide laws.
control. Yeah, yeah, but that's the low bar. That's not a high bar. That's a very low bar. Point being, supremacists exist. If they want to take Talmud out of context for themselves and use it to be supremacists, I can't stop them from doing that. But they are not correct in their interpretation of the text. And the worst thing that you found, and it's from Maimonides, on Sepharia itself, which is like the database of the Talmud, there's a footnote right there. Maimonides is wrong. He's wrong on this one. You want me to denounce Maimonides? I don't know what to tell. He's not my favorite guy. I'll tell you that. Like I went to Israel. I went to like all the tombs of these various tzaddiks. I almost skipped Maimonides. Like, not my favorite guy. I'm a big fan of the Ramchal, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. I'm a big fan of the Ari, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And I encourage people to read the Zohar. I think your afternoon prayer is even called the Zohar prayer. This book, I mean, in I think it's called Nablus, in Nablus, or the Israelis call it Shem. Like, where I study, we were invited to go sing songs of peace with the Palestinians because we actually know this brings peace, that there should be peace between Muslims and Jews and Christians, that there should be peace. So, I appreciate doing this debate, and I hope the thing that people will take away from it is, if there are supremacists out there, they're not following the Quran, or they're not following the Talmud, they're not following the Torah, they're not following the Bible. Supremacists are just after their own interests. That's not the word of God. God would never give us a holy text, and actually it's supremacist, and it's only for some of his children. That doesn't make any sense.
Okay. I mean, I appreciate what you're saying, Andrew. I think that in person you're very nice, but I mean, some of the tweets that you put out are really inflammatory. Like you're
Yes,
tweeting that Muslims are raping Europe.
that's
Like
true.
that's
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 true.
that's true. So I mean,
It's
this
true.
is like, can I share my screen, David or
Yeah.
James? Sorry,
Yeah.
let me just get this on.
Pull
I
up the
mean,
one about goats.
yeah, I mean, like, why do you have to kind of have this behavior,
Okay, so
Andrew?
if
Like
if you
Muslims kill and rape, raping Europe. Why do they rape goats?
yes,
Muslims are raping Europe. Muslims are raping Europe. It's
yes,
like 20 tweets on that subject. They rape goats.
yes.
Deport them en masse. Deport Muslims en masse. It's. I like this.
Okay,
You know, some Jews are evil. You're emphasizing this, and some Christians and Muslims are evil, and most atheists. I agree with that. It's not anti-Semitic to say so. So I agree. You know, this one I'll agree with, but not that Muslims are raping Europe.
okay. If somebody says to me, Jews control the media, I mean, there's a lot of Jews in media. There's a lot of Jews in media. If they say Jews control Hollywood, I get to say no, no, they do. And not every Muslim in Europe is a Jew is a rapist, obviously, but there's a lot of them. They're at higher rates, astronomical rates compared to the rest of the Europeans. And frankly, I mean, I've said this many times. If the Europeans return to Christ, then their nation they'll be able to keep it. If they don't, they're going to be overrun by Muslims. But it's not right for the Muslims that go there and do rape. And you have to admit that the level of rape done by the Muslims, it's very high.
What are the
The
global
Europeans,
rates? Like, look at the global rates of rape. Muslims are not at the highest point. It's
no, but I'm saying
other
in Europe,
groups, not Muslims.
in Europe,
So in Muslim majority countries, the levels of rape are less than European countries. In Muslim
no, no, no.
majority, right?
I'm
So the
just saying
problem
that,
is not the Muslim. It's like it's not Muslims. So if you want to compare rates, that's something that can be debated. Like, okay, are Muslims committing more rape per capita in certain European countries? But your explanation
yes.
is that Islam is causing this. If that were the case, then the level of rape in Muslim countries should be way higher than per capita than the European countries. But it's not. It's lower.
I don't argue that it's Islam that causes the rape. It's because they are migrants that are invading foreign nations and they need to go back. It just so happens that a majority of them or whatever are Muslim, but they need to not be there. If you're going to a foreign nation to conquer it, rape is a consequence of that. And that's what a lot of them say too, is like we're taking back these lands. Like okay, so I'm not for that. I'm
Taking
not for
back.
conquering or taking land by force. Just I even said I'm not for the Jews taking land by force in Israel. So I'm not for Muslims or any other migrant from Arabia or Africa taking land by force in Europe. That's also wrong. And if I'm inflammatory sometimes, brother, you should see the stuff people say to me. If I start talking about somebody raping goats, usually they've been pretty nasty to me, like, all right, I'm just going to say the most inflammatory thing I can because if that's not the game you want to play, I'm happy to do that too. But I prefer to actually talk on a real level and talk about Islam, Christianity, and the Torah all connect to God. That's what I love to talk about the most.
Fair enough. Can I share my screen real quick? Let's look at rape statistics real quick.
Ready for you.
Yeah. So, I mean, by country, you can see like the darker colors means more rape per capita. So the U.S.,
Germany, Germany, Sweden,
France.
Germany and Sweden.
How about these Nordic countries? A lot of Muslims there in these
Yes,
northern
in
countries,
Sweden.
Finland. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, in
So,
Sweden.
but if you look at
Yes.
the countries like China, you look at countries like in the Middle East, it's almost non-existent. But in Europe and United States, it's off the charts. So, yeah, I mean that's important to understand. Like if it's Muslims, like inherently they're just rapists, then like because of their religion or because of race, then why are like if they're like they just come to Europe and they start raping, but they don't do it in their own countries. You can
No,
attribute that to what? To like liberalism. You can attribute that to a kind of a liberal secular system that doesn't really enforce family values, that pushes people to indulge in hedonistic desires. That is what is causing this level of degeneracy, sexual assault in the West that you don't find in traditional societies. And you probably don't find it much in traditional Jewish societies, like in America, for example. But yeah, but I have to dispute your Muslim rape accusations.
Bro, you have to know for a fact a lot of the migrants are there to conquer, and I'm not saying Islam is the reason they're doing it, but it's a fact. Majority of them are Muslim. A lot of them are anti-white, and you pointed out that map. Where are the rapes? Germany and Sweden. It's Muslims doing the rape. I don't think even you would dispute that,
Well,
and I
okay,
don't.
sure.
Go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you. So you did mention something interesting about Hollywood and the media being there's more, maybe a disproportionate representation of Jews in those fields. So would you say that that justifies deporting Jews from the West?
That's a good question. I think the contributions of Jews to the U.S. is actually super underrated. People, I mean, the bad stuff is obvious, the banks and the media and this and this and this and this, but there's a lot of great contributions that people don't talk about. In fact, the founding of the United States, people like to talk about the international bankers, but there was a Jew named Haim Solomon that financed the American Revolution. Literally, there'd be no America without a Jewish financier. So the contribution of Jews to America is very slept on. The bad stuff everybody knows, but I think, like Alex
Same for
Jones says,
Muslims, right? Muslims also have a lot of great contributions.
I'm not trying to deport all the Muslims from America. I do think
Oh,
that the
Europe.
Somalis, well, in Europe, it's very obvious the crime statistics. I don't know what the good contributions would be, but in America, like Alex Jones says,
Doctors,
Jews, we
social workers, you have many politicians, MPs, high-ranking government officials
Sadiq
who are
Khan,
Muslims.
what politics? Sadiq
Yeah, not
Khan, who
Sadiq
you?
Khan, not Sadiq Khan. I mean, I'm not saying they're good from like my perspective, but from your perspective, they would be considered good. Like they're contributing to society, right? As politicians, as doctors, lawyers. There are Muslims in Europe who have these high positions. They're involved in business. So they're good Muslims. But you say you want to deport all Muslims from Europe. Why?
No. I mean, just basically the same in America. Like the last 10, 15 years, the mass migration, that's what needs to be reversed. Like the Somalians in Minnesota, they're not they're not assimilating into America, just like the migrants from Afghanistan or Pakistan or whatever in Europe. They're not assimilating
Like what?
their behavior. The crime rates are very, very high.
You
And
mentioned a lot of bad things. You saying there are good things and bad things from Jews as well. So why can't I just point to the bad things that we both agree on that Jews might be committing, and say that that deserves deportation? Because one of the things that they like the Jewish lobby or the Israeli lobby is pushing America into a lot of wars. You said you oppose wars. Well, do you acknowledge the role of AIPAC in pushing America into these trillion-dollar wars? A lot of people are losing their lives, especially Muslims. So a lot of that's a bad Jewish influence, or censoring of speech on social media, in the press. Anti-Semitism laws. Like these are bad things, and I presume you disagree with them. But should we use that to say that, well, we need to deport Jews? They're not assimilating.
we're disproportionate on both sides of that too. Like Laura Loomer and myself and a number of other like right wing figures. Like we're against all of the foreign wars. Like we're not for these things. We're very vocal about it. So we're disproportionate on both sides of that too. I don't know what to tell you. Jews have a very big influence across the spectrum in America. I don't know if I ever finished the quote. Maybe I did, but Alex Jones says we have the very best and the very worst, and that's true. If Americans wanted this to
He
say
said that.
deport all the yeah, Alex Jones.
He's an
If Americans
anti-Semite.
wanted no, I love Alex. I made his video game, AlexJonesGame.com.
Uh,
Played an Alex Jones video game. If you want to say deport all the Jews from America, honest, all the Jews are supposed to go and buy land and go and live in Israel. So if you want to say deport all the Jews, listen, bro, we're all supposed to go there anyway at some point. You're not making me cry, I promise.
No, that's not my position, but I'm saying be consistent. Like your justification for wanting to deport all Muslims is that you have some segments that are on the bad end amongst Muslims. I acknowledge that. I acknowledge that there are Muslims who commit crimes, and Muslims who even commit rapes, who cause problems for their community. Yeah, there are bad Muslims, of course, but I don't. But does that justify having a blanket deportation policy of Muslims? No, I don't think so. You have to recognize the good things that Muslims do in these societies as well. However you define good. I think for Jews it's the same thing. I don't think Jews should be deported. I want Jews from Israel to leave and come to America. I want them to come to Brooklyn and come to Houston and Texas. Like, that'd be great. Leave Israel, but also, get rid of these Talmudic beliefs, but come, into my neighborhood, no problem. But you're not being consistent. You're saying we want to ban Muslims because you have all these bad non-assimilating Muslims. But when it comes to Jews who have the very best and the very worst, that's fine. We don't have a deportation policy. Why?
Our crime rates for things like rape and murder in America, they're nowhere near what the Muslims are doing in Europe. And again, my point is the mass migration of the last 10, 15 years, this is engineered by people like the UN, the Bilderberg Group, even some of the Zionists you hate. Like, this is a plan of theirs to destroy Western nations. So it's not about Islam, it's about keeping America functional, Europe functional, and the crime rates in Europe. It's just it's obvious. It's obvious that the migration of the last 10, 15 years, they're not normal levels. They're way too high and they need to go back. Muslim or not. Immigrants of the last 10, 15 years in Europe got to go back. And the Somalis and the Mexicans in America, they got to go back. Notice I said Mexicans. I'm pretty sure they're not Muslim. It's just the very, very high levels of immigration. They're taking people's jobs. They're ruining the labor force. They're not assimilating. They're committing very high crimes. The Mexicans, illegals too.
I mean, I'm very surprised.
They got to go back.
I'm very surprised to see you as a Jew, Jewish man in America, making these kinds of arguments, because this is what a lot of white nationalists will also argue and say that, well, there are Jews who are destroying our democracy because of foreign influence. Israel is literally pumping millions of dollars to make sure that only the most pro-Israel candidates are elected. This is meddling with our democracy. They're increasing censorship. They're bullying companies to censor anyone who criticizes Israel, let alone
Should be illegal.
Jews.
Should be illegal.
Yeah, but you're not saying deport the Jews. You're saying deport the Mexicans.
No.
So that's the contradiction.
Israel,
these are huge problems.
no.
So yeah, I can concede. Let's just concede that Muslims commit more rapes and murders than Jews. Let's concede that. It's a different kind of crime, like white collar crime. What kind of the top 10 worst white collar criminals? 50% of them are Jews. Like, look at Bernie Madoff, look at Sam Bankman-Fried, look at, all these white collar crimes that are defrauding millions and billions of dollars from the country in which they live. Like, is that worse, or a petty like Somali criminal or Pakistani or Iranian criminal, Iraqi criminal? I think the white collar crime is much worse.
To begin with, you can't have a functional society if you walk outside and you might get raped or murdered. So it's more immediate because people are facing murder and death, murder and rape. So as far as the white collar criminals, yes, Jews are disproportionate in everything that takes high IQ, whether it's like writing comedy or doing science or white collar crime. Doing white collar crime, it's very high IQ.
So if Jews have the highest IQ, which race has the lowest IQ?
I don't know. We can look at the statistics. I honestly don't know offhand.
Really? Well, just take a guess. Like, since Jews have the highest, there has to be a lowest as well. Who's like lower on the IQ scale?
Could be anyone, Daniel. Could be anyone. I don't know.
This is just so.
Well, I mean, a lot of Jews, like Jewish apologists, a lot of Jewish apologists will note the high Jewish IQ. So I'm wondering, like, a natural follow-up question is, well, which race has the lowest IQ? It seems like natural to ask.
Don't pick on people. Don't pick on people, Daniel. You're mean. You're a mean guy.
We have 18 minutes of the open discussion left. For better or for worse, we'll let you guys keep going.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's other, like, I didn't even mention, like, Pornhub. I didn't mention, like, Grindr and all of the kind of, sorry, James, but these,
gets me.
Yeah, well, there are Jews who are disproportionately involved in those things. Like, I don't think that means we deport all Jews, because Jews like you and many religious Jews are disgusted by the fact that the owner of Pornhub is a rabbi. They're disgusted by that, as they should be. But
gets me
so I don't
because
think that we should deport all Jews because the owner of Pornhub is a rabbi. I don't think that.
what always gets me because he's not even Orthodox. Like he's one of these secular, like I don't know if you know, maybe you do, but like the Reform and the conservative Jewish movements were founded by atheists. So that rabbi that owns that site, like he's secular. He probably doesn't even believe in God. He calls himself a rabbi. It's very nasty.
Yeah.
But as far as deporting all the Jews because of the disproportionate white collar crime, that stuff can be prosecuted. It's very select individuals. It's like how many hundreds of people versus thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of rapists and murderers in Europe. It's not the same thing. White collar crime can be cracked down on.
No, I mean, white collar crime causes economic collapse. Like Goldman
Yeah,
Sachs, their their financial malfeasance caused the 2008 financial collapse, which
yeah, but
and
it's
not just Goldman Sachs, but other Jewish-run firms, and it caused a economic depression for millions of people around the world, hundreds of millions of people. So that
it,
what is that like bad? Of course it is.
no,
So
but
like if you
as
want to
as we
compare
know that
scale, like it's
yeah,
like you're making a claim that well Muslims are committing more crimes in as immigrants. Okay, how do we quantify that? How do we compare that? I'm bringing up meddling with democracy, financial malfeasance that affects the economy, social degeneracy that affects society through pornography, etc. So these are not small problems. Like that's why I don't like this game. That's why I don't like
no, but
this
that's
game.
when you're talking about the white collar crimes, you said for yourself, it's like 50-50, like Goldman Sachs or any of these places. It's not just Jew owned.
It's
At,
disproportionate,
at
a
most,
major
it's
disproportion.
it's highly disproportionate, but at most it's 50-50. So even if you deported all the Jews involved in Goldman Sachs or any of the globalist institutions, you still have people that come from Christian families that are also doing these things. And this is what I say: for every Rothschild, there's a
What's the
Rockefeller.
Do you think that Jews are, since we're talking about Muslim immigrants, do you think that Jews are more pro-immigration um, than average?
Yeah, just like the Catholics. Catholics and Jews are both way too pro
So should we
migrant.
be blaming Catholics and Jews then?
Yes. Listen, I love my Catholic brothers, but the Pope doesn't get nearly enough smoke for saying, we need to wash the feet of the migrant. The West needs to bring in the migrants. The Pope is as bad as any of these liberal Jewish organizations that calls for, oh, give us all the migrants. Like the Catholics and the Jews both need to stop that stuff.
Yeah, that's yeah. I think that if we're denouncing criminals and we acknowledge that they're criminals in all religions and races, but Jews are high IQ, then would you prefer to have high IQ criminals or low IQ criminals?
It's about how it affects the society. Like us, if you walk outside your door in London and you're probably going to get raped or murdered or stolen from, because there's all these migrants, that has to be fixed first. They can't even walk outside.
Yeah, well then if it is, Catholics and Jews that are pushing for those migrants to come in, then this problem is still with a certain religion.
All right, send us all to Israel and the Vatican. Send us all.
No, do not. Maybe the Vatican, but not Israel. Don't go there. Stay in the US. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's why I don't like this line of critique for deportation. But it's still very interesting that you have this perspective. I don't know how consistent and coherent it is, but yeah, it's. I hope this video doesn't or this debate doesn't get taken down.
Why would it get
But
taken? Oh, YouTube. Yeah, you should probably have this on Rumble, James.
you know, no, it's fine. It's fine. We gave the
We
disclaimer. We're not talking about Jews as a race. We're talking about religion. So
We can go. I mean, you have plenty of time. You have 13 minutes left for the open dialogue. Otherwise, we can go into the Q&A.
I think we're good. Let's take some questions.
well, for
Or
converts, there were things that I can dispute about what you mentioned about converts and Yafat Toar, if you feel like it. But there are a lot of statements that will contradict what you said and will point to the fact that, well, converts do have a secondary status. That is found in the Talmud. It's also found in the Mishnah Torah. I can pull up like the exact quotes. There are on Yafat Toar, like you agree that Yafat Toar, like taking the concubine or the wife by force, that is not like a consensual arrangement, right? You acknowledge that.
No, they're not allowed to take by force. It has to be consensual. That's what it says.
But that's why. So, what did you cite for that? Because I missed the citation.
I'll have to go back. I had to look a lot of this stuff up, Daniel. I don't study Talmud like that on a daily basis. I study Pirkei Avot. Do you know what Pirkei Avot is, Daniel?
Yeah, explain it. Go for the audience.
Pirkei Avot is the best section of the Talmud. There's none of these like discussions back and forth. Oh, is this bad thing okay? Is this no? It's actually not okay. Pirkei Avot is just ethics from the father. It's the greatest section of the Talmud. I encourage everyone to read Pirkei Avot. Let me look and see who I cited for Toar. I had to do research for this. You made me do research, Daniel. How
Sorry.
dare you? How dare you? Uh,
If you haven't yet, folks, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We have many more debates coming up. You can see at the bottom right of your screen, Destiny versus Javad. Two of Daniel's best pals will be debating on the channel this month on Israel versus Palestine. You don't want to miss it. Hit subscribe for that big debate coming up.
All the losers get together to debate each other after I'm
We
done
have
with
some
them.
juicy surprises for this month that are in the works,
guys.
working on. It's
I'm
going to
scrolling
be.
through a
Go ahead,
26-page
Andrew.
document, by the way. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah.
We may, and this is folks, if you're watching, I'll give Andrew a chance to find this. We may have sorry, I get you too confused. We may have Daniel at our next conference. It's depending on, frankly, whether or not I hear back from Douglas Murray. So I did message Douglas Murray this morning, Daniel, just so you know, and I'm hoping we'll hear back. He is in America at the time that DebateCon will happen this October. So it's only about 2 months away from the hopeful date, but I'll let you know on whether or not I hear back. Otherwise, we're going to shoot for April because hopefully he'll be doing a tour in the spring as well. So it might be March, might be April, something like that. But yeah, that's a juicy one that hopefully it would be. Maybe I suggested to Douglas Murray, is Islam good for the West? Because he's big on, hey, protect the West and what's best for the West. So I think that'll be a good debate. But
He's
go ahead,
scared.
Andrew. I'll give you a chance.
Let's see if he accepts it. I don't think he's brave enough like Andrew here to step up. Okay.
Oh, I'm the man. Top debating Jew for sure.
Yeah, and Douglas Murray is an honorary Jew. He's not actually a Jew.
Yeah, he's whatever.
Okay, you found it?
I found one thing. Like I got a 26-page document, and I even like Control F searched it. I couldn't find. I found well, if a woman is a monotheist while fornicating, the law doesn't apply. Oh, that's a different. Sorry, bro.
Okay.
You have to rewatch
Well,
the video to
let
get my
me
citation.
present the Mishnah Torah, and then you can maybe remember or find it. So again, Maimonides is not infallible. James, I need to share my screen again. So sorry
You
about
got it.
that. Okay.
Ready.
And then this. Okay, so this is Kings and War, the 8th section. We read, when the army's troops enter the territory of Gentiles, conquering them and taking them captive, they're permitted to eat meat from animals that died without being ritually slaughtered, etc. Similarly, drinking the wine used in worship of idols, etc. Similarly, a soldier may engage in sexual relations with a woman while she is still a Gentile if his natural inclination overcomes him. However, he may not engage in sexual relations with her and then go on his way. Rather, he must bring her into his home. As Deuteronomy states, if you see a beautiful woman, the Yafat Toar, among the prisoners, you shall bring her into the midst of your home. It's forbidden for him to engage in sexual relations with her a second time until he marries her. So there's no statement of consent here.
I found the citation. I'll show
Okay.
it to you. Hold on.
Let me finish reading and then we'll share your screen.
Okay.
So relations with a beautiful Gentile woman are only permitted while she is in captivity. So she's like a prisoner, as the verse states, if you see among the prisoners. So he's directly citing the Bible. This license is permitted whether the woman is a virgin or not, even if she's married, for the Gentiles' marriages are not recognized. A number of laws are derived from the exegesis of the verse from Deuteronomy quoted above, and you desire, even though she is not beautiful, her and not another. He may not engage in sexual relations with two women. You may take her as a wife. He may not take two women as captives with the intention of engaging in relations with one and saving the other for his father or brother. What is the source which teaches that he may not pressure her in the midst of war? Deuteronomy 21:12 states, you shall bring her into the midst of your home. Thus, he must bring her into a vacant place and then engage in relations with her. So it's not in the midst of war. You have to take her to a separate place. So you just find a beautiful woman. You have that strong desire of the Gentile woman, and then you take her, and then you can't have sex with her twice, only once to get rid of the desire. Then you take her captive, and then you have to marry her. A priest is also...
Can I explain? Can I explain now what that means?
Yeah,
Okay.
one more section. A priest is also allowed relations with a Yafat Torah initially. So the priest can have sex with the captive. For the Torah only permitted relations as a concession to man's natural inclination. However, he's not permitted to marry her afterwards, for she is a convert. So only the priests have this special distinction where they have sex, but they can't marry. Whereas the soldiers, they have sex once. If they want to have sex again, then they take her back to their place, shave their heads, and then they can marry and have sex again. That's it.
Okay. It being the thing about it being one time, it's prohibited to have sex with a woman who is not a Jew. So it's not saying that you can rape her one time. It's saying that without her coming to your home and converting, etc., it's permitted one time. But it still has to be consensual. And I'll show the citation now. I shared this earlier too. You shall bring her into your house, teaches that he should not pressure her to engage in sexual intercourse during the war. So you can't pressure her at all. It's not by rape. It's as President Trump would say, they let you do it. Okay? They let you do it. Of course, referring to President Trump's funny, famous quote, you know, grab them by the you
Yeah.
know what. Okay? They let you do it. That's what this is saying here in the Talmud. It's consensual, not by force, not rape. And even then, only one time, then she has to go home and convert. That's what it means. It's not saying you can rape somebody.
Then why does it say captive, and why does it say on the battlefield? The natural
It's still
inclination
it's still
gets you in the
discussing those
battlefield.
circumstances. Yeah, it's still discussing those circumstances. Okay, she's captive, but that doesn't mean that you can. Someone could be a captive and consent. Okay, I'm captive, but I consent to you giving me food or water, or I consent to whatever. Captives can consent to many things.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess the audience can decide if this is describing consensual relations, but
It says don't pressure her. It literally said don't pressure her. So if she's not
mm,
being pressured, how could she consent
yeah.
unless that's what she also wants?
I mean, I'm sure you've heard of this rabbi, the one that is often cited, the IDF chief rabbi, who said that Jewish soldiers can rape the
Yeah, I
Gentile, the Yafat Toar. So he said he used the word rape, not like, oh, it's marriage or whatever.
I put that in my document too, actually, because I found what he said. Even that guy, he said, I never wrote, I never thought it's permitted for an IDF soldier to rape women during the war. Such action is totally forbidden. That's what even that guy said, that it's forbidden. Even that guy.
Well, that's not what his original comment said. Like, he was in a Q&A forum. People were asking him questions. And he said, yes, the soldier has the right to take Yafat Toar and rape her. That's what then he backtracked when that went viral. And because when he
Maybe he
was
did.
going to be assigned chief rabbi, they went through his records. They found that Q&A session. And in his private circle of students, he was saying, yeah, you can rape the... And that's the thing that the IDF is doing now. Like, that's what the whole gang rape case is about. That's why there's so many in Israel who are, going to the prisons and saying, we will rape them. That's their belief. Like, they're taking that from somewhere. And that was the challenge I put to you in the opening statement. Like, where are they getting that from? It's from the religious teachings. Now, if you want to say the religious teachings don't say that, I can accept that your interpretation of the religious teachings don't say that. That's fine. But clearly they're interpreting it in a way, and it's not like one or two crazy people. It's like the whole society. And this is called, like, in Israeli media, like, this is a moral debate whether you can brutally gang rape prisoners. Like, you have to, it's a debate because there are religious texts that permit it, and you have chief rabbis who permit it.
People misinterpreting things is people misinterpreting things. That's why I gave you the example of that supposed imam saying that a Muslim can say to a Christian or a Jew, "Give me your clothes," and he has to do it. So if people want to be supremacist and
One
misinterpret
imam
things,
that you didn't have a name for versus like 50% of Jews in Israel.
I did not go and try and find every single imam that says something similar to that. I'm sure I could find hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands. I'm sure I could find a lot of them. But that wasn't my
Trust me,
purpose.
bro. Source, trust me, bro. I don't have
Oh
to
no,
search
no,
for
no.
anything. I just have to go to my Twitter feed and see like all of these Israeli Knesset politicians saying, we have to, our heroic soldiers who are brutally gang raping Palestinians. Like, we should make this state policy to gang rape the Palestinians in prison. Like, they're on their most popular news station, like Good Morning America, like their analog of Good Morning America, except instead of talking about like squirrels doing tricks, they're talking about raping Palestinians in prison. Like, that's a sick society, right? I don't have to go
I just found
searching for it.
Muhammad Hijab saying that it's worse to be a Christian than to be a homosexual. That's what Muhammad Hijab just said. And so
That's a
you can
belief
find this
of
stuff on any feed of Muslims saying stuff like I'm saying that's wrong according to you, unless that's wrong, that's wrong. So
like committing
plenty of
like
Muslims say things wrong too. I don't know what to tell you.
no, he didn't say anything wrong. He didn't say anything wrong, but you're comparing Muhammad Hijab, like a statement on that versus like, should we engage in gang rape of Palestinians in prison? Like, those are
Hold on.
comparable things.
Isn't the penalty for homosexuality death?
Yeah.
So then, if he's saying being a Christian is worse than being a homosexual, the penalty is even worse than death.
That's not what he's referring to. He's referring to like the ontological status, like the status before God. Like, it is conceivable that God will forgive someone who commits a crime like homosexuality, and even be get the death penalty for that. Like, you can be an adulterer. The adulterer in Islam is also stoned, but when you're stoned, that's like a like, this is a way for you to clean your sins, or your sins are wiped out, and then God can still forgive you for that. Whereas if you reject God and you say that I reject the religion and I do not believe, that is something that cannot be forgiven in the same way that a sin of the flesh, even though it has a bigger penalty. So in Islam, we're not supposed to kill Christians and Jews. They're ahlul dhimma, they're protected people, even though their belief, like the belief in rejecting God, that is worse than things that do have a penalty, like adultery or homosexuality or etc. So
Why do you believe that
I want to give you a
Christians?
chance to respond, Andrew, though I would like to ask if you could do it during your concluding statement, because we do have 5-minute concluding statements as we just wrapped up the open dialogue. With that,
Yeah,
thank you very much.
before I get to the 5 minutes, I just want to ask him why do you think that Christians don't believe in God
no,
or
they,
Jews
they
don't believe in God?
No, you believe in God, but you're rejecting the final messenger. And that is a requirement for God's acceptance. You have to accept God and his messengers, all his messengers. So Muslims, you have to accept Abraham, you have to accept Noah, you have to accept Isaac and Jacob and Joseph and Moses and Jesus and Muhammad, the final messenger. If you reject any of these prophets, then you are not saved, in the sense that you accept God, but you haven't accepted his messengers that he sent with books, and that is required for salvation to be allowed into paradise. So that's maybe different than what Christians or Jews believe.
So if I think that
I hate to do this, but just because you had said that you just wanted to ask him one more question, so we give him a chance to answer. So let's jump into those concluding statements. 5 minutes. The floor is all yours, Andrew.
I think it was a good debate. I hope the takeaway for people is that obviously uh, the Torah is from God. God is not going to permit people to do anything wrong to each other. It's there in Leviticus. You're not allowed to harm anyone. So if you look at something from the Talmud and it looks like it's permitting harm, keep reading. It doesn't allow you to harm anybody. Just it's not there. Um, you know, a Gentile should be put to death for studying the Torah. Oh, wait, a Gentile is like the high priest for studying the Torah. So that's what it says. And not only that, stuff about Gentiles in the Talmud, it says, this is from Rabbi Nachman of Breslev. Uh, you are not the Gentiles of the Talmud. And I'll reread that statement for a little bit just because it's so good. Uh, I have it at the top. The wise will understand on their own that the Gentiles in whose lands we currently reside are not like those who were in the time of the sages of the Talmud. The latter were idolaters who worshiped the stars and the constellations and were attached to all forms of abomination. They knew not God, nor recognized his holy words, but the nations of our day fear God and honor his Torah, doing kindness and justice in their lands, in charity with the Jews who take refuge under their wings. Heaven forbid that we should either say or write anything disrespectful about them. Thus, any reference to nations, Gentiles, and peoples of the world and the like refers only to those idolaters that lived at the time of the Mishnah. So, Christians and Muslims are not idolaters. Christians believe in God the Father. God the Father is God. Muslims believe in God. So, you are not idolaters. You are not the Gentiles, the heathens of the Talmud. So even those sections where they're saying, what about this with a heathen? It's not even about you, bro. And the end result of their deliberations, it says you can't even lie to a Gentile at that time. And that's not even a Muslim or Christian for today. It says, Shmuel said, it is prohibited to deceive people and even to deceive a Gentile. And you guys are way better than the Gentiles, the idolaters of the Talmud, of the time of the Talmud. So I hope people learned a lot from this. I think it was a lot of fun. And the last thing I wanted to ask Daniel, if he could tell me, I just said that I believe Muslims believe in God. So I accept that Muhammad was sent to give people a path to God. And I believe Christians also believe in God. So does that mean, according to you, do Jews or Christians that believe Muhammad was sent to give you guys a path to God, does that mean that we're going to heaven in your estimation? Or does that mean that because I'm not a Muslim myself, even though I recognize Muhammad was sent to give you guys a message from God, like am I going to heaven, bro? I know that I am, but I want to know from your perspective. So go ahead.
We'll kick it over to Daniel for his 5 minute closing as well. The floor is all yours, Daniel.
To answer your question, Andrew, no, it's not acceptable to say that Muhammad, peace be upon him, was only sent to Muslims. We don't have to follow him. No, Muhammad, peace be upon him, as the final messenger of God, was sent to all of creation. So everyone has to accept Muhammad as the final messenger. And there are many reasons to see, like Muhammad didn't come with just a claim that I'm the final messenger, take my word for it. He came with miracles, he came with proofs, he left us the Quran, which can be studied. And Jews especially, I invite them to read the Quran, read about the life of Muhammad, and you'll see that his life parallels very closely with the life of Moses. This is very clear cut, and that's why many Jews in his time and thereafter have converted to Islam. So I extend that invitation to Jews everywhere in the world to accept Islam as well. And without accepting Muhammad, there is no salvation. Accepting not only Muhammad, but also Jesus and all of Abraham and Moses and all of the prophets. So to reiterate the whole presentation that I made, We looked at what the Jewish religious texts say about murder and rape of non-Jews. There's no punishment for them. There's no punishment mentioned in the legal texts. And this is actually practiced by many Jews, unfortunately, in Israel, where they're killing and they're raping Palestinians. And they're doing so as religious Jews. The settler violence that we have discussed, like with baby Ali Dawabsha, 18-month-old burned alive, these kinds of horrors are happening every day for Palestinians. So we have to pray for these Palestinians that this oppression will stop, the ethnic cleansing, the genocide will stop. How can anyone see a picture of Hind Rajab, that beautiful 6-year-old girl, and not feel so devastated by the kind of horrors she had to witness that no human being should witness, especially not a child? She went through that, and if that does not make you cry and your heart bleed for the Palestinians, I don't know what else will. Unfortunately, the Jewish texts give room for that kind of treatment of non-Jews and little girls like Hind Rajab and Ali Dawabsha. In the second part, I talk about financial exploitation. Jews are given permission to rob non-Jews. They're given permission to not pay back loans. They're given permission to actually manipulate the justice system in favor of Jews in a biased way. They can charge interest, even that high interest without limit, that can financially ruin people. This is something that is allowed. Yes, in certain cases, there are rabbis who disagree, but the most authoritative sources actually allow all of this. And we cited the Talmud itself, which, by the way, is considered to be from God, the oral law. And we also cited the Mishnah Torah and other Jewish scholars. Then in the third section, we talk about the law of Masira, the law against whistleblowing. So you can't even basically report to non-Jews about the crimes that Jews may be committing. My opponent, Andrew, didn't really even acknowledge the law of Masira. He didn't acknowledge this idea of whistleblowing being condemned in the Talmud and in the Mishnah Torah. This is something very significant because it encourages conspiratorial behavior. It encourages doing crimes and then hiding it. This is what we see in Israel, where the IDF, for example, investigates itself and it finds no crime. Why? Because the Talmud says if you whistleblow on other Jews, even for small things, then you deserve to die, and another random Jew can come and slay you and kill you even without a court order. So this is why we don't hear about the atrocities, and whenever Israel investigates itself, it finds itself not guilty. This is conspiratorial criminal behavior, and this is why Israel is this rogue state, this criminal state. I don't think all Jews approve of this. Many Jews are opposed to this. Many Jews denounce Israel and its crimes. Even Andrew, my debate opponent, he did this, and I appreciate that, and we commend that as Muslims. But there's a problem with the texts. You know, if there are Jews who want to just take the most positive things from the Talmud, fine. But what about a large majority in Israel who are taking the worst interpretations, reading the worst passages and applying that against the Palestinians? The Palestinians are suffering. And I wish that Andrew would say something like Hind Rajab shouldn't have been killed, Ali Dawabsha shouldn't have been killed. This is horrifying. This is terrible. The Israeli religious settlers who did this are criminals, and I wish that they would suffer to the full extent of the law. That's what I hope Andrew will say. And I thank Andrew. I thank James. I thank all the Jews, open-minded, fair-minded Jews that are listening to this and take this to heart. I'm not an enemy of peace-loving Jews, peace-loving Christians. I'm not an enemy, but my heart bleeds for the Palestinians, my people, and we pray for them. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that closing as well. We're going to jump right into Q&A. I want to say thanks for your questions, folks. We're going to move fast so we can get to all of them. This one first from Mohammed said, question for Daniel. Let me just turn my volume up a little bit. Mohammed said, is the Quran sufficient for someone to be guided?
No.
You got it? This one from Jonathan Bendler says, Daniel, some rabbis claiming their commentary, such as the Talmud, is above Torah, have as much validity as imams claiming their commentary is above the Quran.
Well, I mean, this is the principle of the Torah is not in heaven. And the oven of Achnai incident, which is referred to in the Talmud and some of the oldest rabbinic texts, like the Toseftas. This is something that is found throughout rabbinic Judaism, that when the rabbis decide something, that is the law. It doesn't really matter what that is the Torah. That is the Torah, actually. So this is also something that people get confused by, is that the Torah is not just the 5 books of the Torah. The Torah is an ambiguous term. It can refer to all of the law. So Torah can actually mean the Torah and the Talmud. Torah can actually refer to not only the Torah, but all of the Hebrew Bible. So it depends on how are you defining Torah. And Andrew didn't get into this kind of nuance and specificity. But just because you have a statement about the Torah being the highest law, what is actually meant by that use of the term Torah? Because it can be equivocation. Torah can actually refer to the Talmud as well. But look at the actual doctrine of the oven of Achnai. The Torah is not in heaven. Even if God himself comes and has a voice from heaven that says, like, this is the correct thing, this is the correct mitzvah or whatever it may be, the rabbis can disagree. The rabbis can say, actually, God, you're wrong. And this is the oven of Achnai incident that's referred to in the Talmud. So I really strongly object to the idea that the Talmud is not as significant as the Torah. The Talmud is even referred to as the Torah.
Okay, I have to respond. I have to respond to those things, James. That's okay. Share. So once again, the Talmud is fallible. Even Maimonides himself, the letter to astrology, says that Talmudic sages can speak both allegorically and they can be mistaken. And when I was referring to the Torah is number one, the Torah is king, I'm speaking about the 5 books of Moses specifically. Yes, you can use the word Torah to refer to all of Torah study, but I'm specifically speaking about the 5 books of Moses. The Torah cannot be controverted by any other book, not even the Talmud. And he asked me about Mesirah. Mesirah, this is not a source that I would go to, but I just looked it up. Mesirah may not necessarily apply to reporting legitimate crimes to responsible authority. It applies to turning over a Jew to an abusive authority. So when you say that Jews can't possibly turn in another Jew for a crime, again, I have to research a lot of the things that you say to find out why it's wrong. So while you were saying Mesirah, I didn't respond to it. That one didn't even click for me. So I looked it up. That's why you can, if it's an abusive authority, meaning not a real justice or some bad government, it doesn't mean that you would never turn in a Jew. So, and I'm sure that we can do this round 2 and go into that more. But brother, you gotta stop saying some of the things that you're saying. I just showed that what you're saying is not right on many subjects. You can't just say, "Oh, it says this and this." Like, I just showed you that that's not what it says. But
I mean, this is
do
like
what you're
people
gonna do.
debating like jihad in Islam, and then like a Muslim saying, no, Islam means peace. That's like the level of apologetics that you're using. Like, yeah, of course, you're going to find the most liberal interpretation that some modern rabbi has said. So what? Let's look at what the pre-modern rabbis have said, the pre-modern religious texts that have said, and it doesn't have like these kinds of details that have been added later in order to make things more palatable.
Citation I just gave you is from Maimonides. I didn't cite some liberal
The
New Age
citation was
cuckoo rabbi.
Wikipedia. You read Wikipedia.
No. I was talking about the first citation I gave you was Maimonides. The second one, undoubtedly, it'll be the Talmud. When you look into that, undoubtedly, it'll be the Talmud. We'll have to do round 2 if you want to talk. Oh, let's see what it says about, I forgot even the word, Mesirah. We'll have to do round 2. Undoubtedly, the source that I'll cite is the Talmud itself. So
I
you
cited the
don't know
Talmud.
you don't know what you're talking about.
I
You
cited
just don't.
on the screen. I showed the Talmud when it comes to
Yes, but
Mesirah. Like there's a story of that is justifying that law that Maimonides derives from the Talmud.
and undoubtedly, every time when you cite Talmud like that, you keep reading. The first iteration, oh, the Gentile deserves death. The second one, oh, the Gentiles like the high priest.
That's
So
why I
yeah,
cited Maimonides. That's exactly why I cite Maimonides. Because if you say that, oh, Daniel, you're just cherry picking, you're not reading in context, okay, then why does Maimonides have the same exact interpretation that I do?
Maimonides is wrong sometimes. The one you're talking about, a different citation of Maimonides, and I showed it
You
earlier
you
on the
think
screen. There's a footnote saying he's wrong. Sometimes he's right, and sometimes he's wrong. Maimonides is not the ultimate authority.
well you
I have a
didn't
10-volume set called Sefer Chinuch of Nachmanides correcting Maimonides. He's not always the authority.
do Jews consider Nachmanides a bigger scholar or Maimonides?
Depends who you talk to. Like Ben Shapiro's a Maimonides guy. I'm a Nachmanides guy. It literally depends who you talk to.
No, I'm asking for like the majority of Jews. Who do they consider to be the bigger scholar?
It's a tough question. Both their books are extremely popular. Like you could find them anywhere. So that's a tough. I literally couldn't answer that because they're both
The
extremely
other
popular.
strategy that you used is that you're just saying that Nachmanides disagrees with Maimonides. Yeah, that they're gonna have disagreements, but you didn't show where he disagreed specifically on these issues that I brought up, like on the
I
legal
show
punishment for murder. Where was the disagreement? Nachmanides
I show
didn't say there is a legal punishment if a Jew kills a Gentile. There
I
was no
show I
citation.
showed I showed the footnote right in Sepharia where they're telling you it's wrong in cited to Deuteronomy, which is the higher authority. Or excuse me, cited to Leviticus. Leviticus, one of the 5 books of Moses, is the higher authority. You can't contradict or controvert the Torah. So Maimonides saying something wrong, and then right there in the footnote, all those rabbis said, no, look at Leviticus. Maimonides is wrong on this. So the Torah is the highest authority, not the Talmud, and not Maimonides either.
What issue was that specifically that footnote on?
I'll pull it up again. Go back to the start.
I don't think it was on legal punishment.
No, it was about a non-Jewish woman being murdered. Hold on, I'll show it to you. Yeah, this is punishment. Share. Okay, this is Maimonides right here. By contrast, a Jewish male enters into relations with a Gentile woman. When he does so intentionally, she should be executed. And then right here, the Magid Mishneh says, no, that's wrong. And he cites to Numbers, one of the books of the Torah, the 5 books of Moses. He cites Numbers. Numbers controverts Maimonides. So Maimonides is wrong. Maimonides cannot controvert the Torah. When he does, he's wrong. That's why there's a 10-volume set from Nachmanides showing you here's why Maimonides was wrong. He's wrong sometimes. I don't know what to tell you. He's not the highest authority.
Yeah, there's the things I pointed out in the debate, like legal punishment. Nachmanides doesn't have a different opinion on that. Punishment for raping a non-Jew, there's no punishment for that you cited. Like that, those are the things that
Listen,
there is no disagreement on.
I hate to see we've got so many
no, no,
questions. We've got to
you
move to the next one. This one from Jonathan Genler says, Daniel, how do you explain Exodus 12:49, which says, there shall be one law for the citizen and the stranger who dwells among you, versus DHIMI. How am I saying it right? How do I say that? Dhimmi status in
Dhimmi status.
Islam.
Yeah, Dhimmi status. I have had full debates on Ahlu Dhimma with Christians like David Wood, and I acknowledge in the presentation that every religion will have discriminatory laws towards non-adherents. You find that in Islam, you find that in Christianity, you find that in Judaism, Hinduism, etc. The difference is that in Judaism, like it goes to another level. Like Islam doesn't say that there's no punishment. If a Muslim kills a non-Muslim, there's no punishment for that. Or if a Muslim rapes a non-Muslim, there's no punishment for that. Islam doesn't say that, but Judaism very explicitly says that in the Talmud, in their greatest legal text, their most authoritative legal text. And you can't just say, oh, well, there's difference of agreement and just hand wave the issue. Like give me the citation from Nachmanides or any of these other rabbis. You can't also make like a generic statement like, oh, the Bible says do not harm, therefore you can punish the Jew who murders a non-Jew. No, show me where it's allowed to have a punishment, or there is required to be a punishment for a Jew who murders or rapes a non-Jew, where is the punishment for the Jew? Give me a citation for that from a pre-modern text, not a modern rabbi, or better yet, the Talmud. You won't find it.
I hate to do this, but we just have to move fast. Folks, we don't have any more time for additional questions that have not already been submitted. So if you submit it, I think we can get it in, but we have to move fast with this Q&A to get the rest in. Don't submit any more questions for the Q&A. I wish we could. Den Mother Amanda Raymond says, Daniel, if it really is true about 3-year-old girls having intercourse with men and it is vile, then explain why it is not vile to do the same thing with a 13-year-old girl child in Sharia. Age 13 is still a child.
Go to the debate that I've had on this issue. Every single debate you have to ask about this one issue. I had a whole debate with a Christian on the age of consent and the age of marriage in Islam versus the Bible. Go to that debate. There is no minimum age of consent mentioned in the Bible. And as we saw, a lot of the rabbis and a lot of the Jewish texts say that it can be as young as 3. You can engage in intercourse at age 3, a 3-year-old girl. But a 13-year-old, like 13-year-olds are having a lot of sex in the world that we live in today. They're having sex with their boyfriends. Some of them are having gay sex. Some of them are having group sex. All the people who ask me this question have no problem with 13-year-olds having sex, 10-year-olds having sex, 9-year-olds having sex or gay sex or group sex. You have no problem with it. And the point and the fact of that is demonstrated when there are public schools and even states who say, we need to pass out condoms in the middle schools. We need to pass out condoms and teach about pornography and safe sex in the middle schools. Why? Because it's accepted. You have no problem with 13-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 9-year-olds being sexually active. Childhood sexuality is rampant in the United States. So don't pretend like you have a problem with that. You just want to attack Islam and Islamic values. Islam says you can't have sex outside of marriage. And there are also Jewish opinions that state that as well. You cannot have sex outside of marriage. That is far better, for a 13-year-old to be married with the consent of her parents, than for her to be sexually active because the middle school teacher gave her a condom and now she's having group sex or maybe even lesbian sex with her classmates in this kind of degenerate fashion that runs rampant in the West. So I much prefer that 13-year-old girl to be married with the consent of her parents to a responsible adult in matrimony. That is much more healthy, proper, decent, correct, safe than the degeneracy that your society has institutionalized and doesn't even question.
I hate to see. This one from Jonathan says, Daniel can't seem to handle Jews' ability to debate and disagree with one another on very heavy topics while remaining respectful to each other. I don't know. I thought it was pretty respectful, especially the end. It seemed like you guys were almost like buddies. Evidence of God says, Leviticus 19:33 says, be good to strangers in your land. Embrace them as one born among you. Love them as you love yourself. Torah promotes fair treatment. Quran demands jizya, enforcing Islam progressively. What are your thoughts, Daniel?
Yeah, many similar rules exist when it comes to treatment of non-Jews. Like you're complaining about jizya. Like jizya in Islam means that if you're a non-Muslim in a Muslim state, you pay a tax, but you don't have to fight in the wars. You don't have to fight to protect, like you're a protected person. That's what dhimmi means. You're comparing jizya to like if a Jew kills you as a non-Jew, there's gonna be not a punishment for the Jew. Like that's comparable. Give me a break.
This one coming in from Do Appreciate It. Jonathan Genler says, Daniel, if good Muslims have a ticket to paradise, why is it sad when they pass on? In Gaza, isn't Israel doing them a favor by shortening the trip?
Yeah, Christians believe in heaven. Jews believe in a life to come, the world to come. That doesn't mean that we all like are pro-death and pro like killing our children. So this is a very dehumanizing attack, like not only on Muslims but all theists. Like just because you believe in an afterlife doesn't mean that that justifies killing people who believe in an afterlife. That's really sick logic.
You got it. This one coming in from, do appreciate it. Tarek Al Safi. Okay, that looks like more of an insult. Faisal says, why don't Jewish people in Palestine assimilate into Arabs? Why not start following Sharia? Why occupy a land, kill and then rape and pillage and depossess natives? I think that's for you, Andrew.
Oh, sorry, I was answering Twitter people. Could you read it back?
They say, why don't Jews in Palestine assimilate into Arabs? Why not start following Sharia? Why occupy a land, kill and rape and pillage and depossess natives?
What is that, a serious a serious question? Why don't all the Jews become something else, not Jews? That's next.
Well, you
EH,
said that Muslims need to assimilate to Europe, so I think that's what he's basing that off of.
No, they need to not do rape and murder.
No,
this one coming in
same for
from, do
Jews.
appreciate it. EHI says some Talmud interpretations are extremely racist, but the difference is they don't enslave and heal non-Jewish people like Islam does.
I don't. Islam kills non-Muslim people. Like, where are you getting that from? Like, this is just. Do you have a text or a citation for that? Muslims are not allowed to kill non-Muslims unless there's a war, unless there's a legitimate war that has been declared by a legitimate Islamic authority, like the Caliph. There's no going and killing non-Muslims. I even cited the hadith earlier in the open dialogue where the Prophet, peace be upon him, says that if you violate the rights of a person protected by a treaty, even a non-Muslim, you won't, as a Muslim, won't smell the fragrance of paradise. So this kind of low IQ attack on Islam, saying, "Oh, you believe in killing non-Muslims," like, this is stupid.
This one from Jonathan Gendler says, Andrew, stop telling non-Jewish people to deport each other.
That's pretty funny.
Evidence of God says hadiths cause Islamic states to require 4 male witnesses to convict rape, and premarital sex is illegal. So how can you trust Islamic rape statistics?
No, that's actually a falsehood against Islam. When it comes to rape, it does not require 4 witnesses. There are contextual factors that are taken into account by the Muslim judge or the Muslim authorities, and there are ta'zir punishments as well. And rape can be punished with a death, depending on the circumstance. So that's a complete falsehood about Islam.
You got it? This one coming in from Idrizo5 says, why the Christians and Hindus commenting? Let's see. Okay. Halal Zoomer says, kill, let's see, they're quoting Jerusalem Talmud, Kedushin 4:11. They're saying it says, quote, kill the best of Gentiles, smash the head of the best of snakes. They say, do you agree? This is what it says.
Yeah, we literally addressed that exact quote. No, the correct translation is heathens, not Gentiles. The
Thank
heathens
you.
of the Talmud do not exist anymore. You can go back. We addressed that, I think, twice.
Samson says, but that is only for the one Hasidic group. It doesn't apply to other groups or sects. They didn't mention the context, so I'm trying to remember myself. This one from Muhammad says, Andrew, by the way, Samson, let me know in live chat if you know the context and I'll try to connect it. Andrew, this is from Muhammad. He says, Hijab was saying that polytheists are worse than men who prefer the company of men. They say the Quran clearly says good Jewish folks go to heaven. Daniel is just an extremist.
Wow, thank you. Let's go, Muhammad. I'm going to heaven, buddy. Thank you.
This
Yeah,
one from,
yeah, you have people who say all kinds of things. So I can back up everything that I say with the authoritative Islamic sources, Quran, Hadith, and the scholarly tradition. So
Is Makairik going to hell?
Makairik?
Mukairik. Believe he's a Jew that helped Muhammad. He never converted. Mukairik. Is he going to hell?
If he didn't convert, then yes.
Ah,
Even the uncle of the Prophet, peace be upon him, even his uncle, Abu Talib, did not convert. Even though he helped, no one helped the Prophet, peace be upon him, more than Abu Talib. And the Prophet loved Abu Talib, his uncle, but he refused to convert. And so he The prophet said that he's going to be in the hellfire and like the least severe level of hellfire. So believing in the final messenger of God is a requirement for salvation.
You got it. This one coming in from, do appreciate it. Halal Zoomer says, Andrew, do you follow the Wikipedia Torah? It's a cheeky. Jonathan Gendler says the rabbis of Ashkenai were heretical. There's a long history of non-rabbinic Judaism. From Sadducees to Karaites, Deuteronomy 4:2 shall not add anything to what I've commanded you or take anything away.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't
you're
think
not like you're following rabbinic Judaism, obviously, like a liberal
there's a
rabbinic Judaism.
liberal. What are you talking about?
It's like a modernist, post-enlightenment
No,
Judaism.
here's who I follow: Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. I follow Rav Yitzhak Luria, Rav Brandwein. I'm naming the luminaries of the Torah, like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, like Moses, Abraham. Like who else do you want me to name? Like this is the lineage. Like liberal doesn't enter into the equation anywhere.
This one coming in from, do appreciate it. Samson just clarified. They said that for their earlier super chat, the context was when Andrew was quoting Nachman of Breslov. Sorry if I'm saying it wrong. They said in their super chat about that quote, they said, but that is only for that one Hasidic group. It doesn't apply to other groups or sects.
Okay, so Breslev Hasidism, that is the vast majority of Orthodox Jews on the planet. And Rabbi Nachman of Breslev, I believe, is universally recognized. I've maybe these Karaite fringe guys, I don't know. But like if you follow the Torah, Rabbi Nachman of Breslev, universally recognized as a tzaddik, as a righteous, even if you aren't a Breslever yourself. So whoever wrote that comment, I don't think you know what you're talking about, bro.
Jonathan Gendler says the rabbis of Aknai were heretical. There's a long history of non-rabbinic Judaism. From Sadducees to Karaites, Deuteronomy 4:2 says, shall not add anything to what I've commanded you or take anything away. May I just read
He's
that?
saying Oven of Achnai. Is that what you're reading? Because that's in the Talmud. Like that story is from the Talmud. How can you say the Talmud is heretical?
You questioning the commenter?
Yeah, I don't know what it's
Here,
referring
let me
to.
read it one more time and I'm going to try to process it myself because I'm just a little bit slow today. They say the rabbis of Aknai were heretical. There's a long history of non-rabbinic Judaism.
Yeah, he. This is like a heretic from your perspective, Andrew. He's
I mean,
like he's
he
really off the
sounds like it.
plantation. He's saying that. I mean, this is like non-rabbinic Jews. Like they actually reject the Talmud. They only accept the Torah, meaning the 5 books. But it's
I,
interesting.
I've run into one guy that identifies as a Karaite Jew, and he didn't know what the heck he's talking about.
This one
Maybe
coming
you
in
don't.
from Samson says, question for Andrew. By the way, folks, we might be able to take just a couple more questions. I've got to leave, pardon me, gentlemen, in about 10 minutes. I have to go because I'm going to get kicked out of the public library. So it's like Samson says, question for Andrew. Did Moses wear tefillin? Does God wear one too? Which style and how many? Rashai, Tam, Shamusha, Ravad?
Yeah, Moses must have worn tefillin. They said even Abraham wore tefillin. So yeah,
You got it. This one coming in from, do appreciate it. Sam, we got that one. Halal Zoomer says, if Maimonides is so wrong, why do you quote him?
he's right sometimes and he's wrong sometimes. That's why literally there's a whole 10-volume set called Sefer Chinuch that talks about all the mitzvot, the various mitzvahs, like good deeds that you can do. And it quotes from Rashi, it quotes from Rambam, that's Maimonides, it quotes from Ramban, that's Nachmanides. And in a lot of places, Nachmanides corrects Maimonides. And in a lot of places, Maimonides correctly explains what's going on. So sometimes he's right, sometimes he's wrong. He's not the highest authority, and he is controverted brilliantly by Nachmanides many times.
You got it. This one coming in from, I could have sworn I just saw one. There it is. Thanks very much. Famo says, Andrew, can you address the Talmud where it calls Jesus? They say allegedly it refers to, it uses the word bastard, and it says, and his mother Mary is a whore. Is it true that it does say that about Jesus and his mother in the Talmud?
That is in the Talmud, and that is a corruption that was added later. I'm glad he asked that because it's not really relevant to everything we talked about, but it's great for people to know. This is a quote from, you know what? I'll do a screen share. Hold on. Oops. Don't leave the meeting. Yikes. I'm pressing the wrong. That'd be horrible if I click leave the meeting right then. Oh no! Like
He ran
that'd be
away
pretty funny.
from the
Yeah,
Jesus
yeah,
in the
yeah.
Talmud
Hold on.
question.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hold on. Okay, there was a whole fabrication. Oh, dang it. There's a whole fabrication about the danger of the teachings of that man, Jesus. It was created with false dogmas and it was done in a repugnant manner. Through him, a lot of nations were going to know God, and now we have to fix those mistakes. That is Kabbalist Moshe David Valley. He is a Sadiq. He was the student of the Ramchal, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Lutzato, and he said that the stuff about Jesus that was added later to the Talmud is a corruption that was added later. So,
Yeah, so my response to that is, yeah, a modern rabbi will claim that. A lot of Jewish apologists will claim that. But if you go to the older sources, clearly the Talmud is referring to Jesus and referring to him as an illegitimate child of a harlot, calling the Mary mother of Jesus a harlot. This is go to a definitive academic source by a Jewish source, actually. Jesus in the Talmud by Peter Schaefer. This is published by Princeton University Press. And Peter Schaefer is very good because he is going in depth into the Talmud and the history of the Talmud. And he's, saying, yeah, this is referring to Jesus. Judaism, rabbinic Judaism, has a big problem with Jesus, and Jesus is a big challenge to Judaism, so it has to be responded to, and it's responded to in the Talmud in very interesting ways and very disturbing ways. But read Peter Schaefer's Jesus in the Talmud. Maybe Andrew can read it as well from Princeton University Press. It's very academic.
in case you're not getting what I'm putting down, your guy Peter Schaefer, he's referring to stuff in the Talmud that, according to Kabbalist Moshe David Valley, this is a Sadiq. This is like the Christians would call their people saints. I don't know what the word for it is in Islam. This is a righteous. He's saying that the quotes that we see now in the Talmud, they were added later. They're not authentic. They are corruptions that were added. So
Who?
Peter
What's
Schaefer
what's his
can
authority? Like, is he a professor somewhere? Like, you consider him a saint.
no.
I don't consider him a saint. Like,
Moshe
give me an
Moshe David
academic citation.
yes. Moshe David Valley, who I just showed you his quote, he is the highest student of the Ramchal, Moshe Chaim Lutzato. Every Orthodox Jew in the world will recognize Moshe Chaim Lutzato. This is the author of Mesilat Yesharim, Path of the Just, Derech Hashem. Like, this is one of the luminaries of the Torah. This is not modern liberal. This is a genius who had revelations about the
Library
Torah.
will be closed in 20
I
minutes.
mean, we
All
have.
grab items which are going to purchase, please do so at this time.
There's this other guy on Twitter named Israel Advocacy, and he puts out this claim too. Like, this is the standard apologetic, and
Standard.
that the person who you're citing, he was pressured, like he was brought in front of Christians and interrogated on this. So under that kind of life and death
No.
situation, this is the claim that he made. But actual academics, because anyone can claim anything about their religion, but what is the academic objective study that will prove, like, okay, what does the religion say? I'm not saying everything the academics say are correct. I'm not saying Peter Schaefer is correct in everything, but he provides a very compelling argument and a very compelling view and is worth reading.
Yeah, Moshe David Valley was under no duress when he wrote that. Zero.
This is the last question we can take. Famo says, Andrew, can you address the Talmud where, oh, yes, asked that. I thought there was a new one. Let me just check. Otherwise, I hadn't mentioned yet. Both of our guests are linked in the description, folks. So do want to encourage you, check out their links. I've got Andrew's Twitter, I've got Daniel's YouTube. And even if you disagree, and if you're like, man, I just can't stand this person's ideas, if you're going to disagree with them and critique them, it's probably best to get it straight from the horse's mouth. Like that's the best way to actually, in the most real way, understand. Because it's good that you're watching debates, because some people don't even do that, because some people are so insular. But it is great. And the next step is looking at their primary content itself. So they are both linked below. I think that is it for questions. I wish you could go longer, but as you guys heard on the PA system a minute ago, I am visiting family in Wisconsin, so I have limited spots to stream from. So with that, I do want to say thank you to our guests, Daneil and Andrew. It's been a true pleasure to have you guys.
Thank you so much, Andrew.
Zohar.com. Thank you, Daniel. If you want to learn some of what I'm talking about, Zohar.com. Study the Zohar. It's amazing. Brings peace in the world. Thank God. And I think we got to a good place. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, James.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You guys take care. I'll put that link in the description box for you, Andrew, in addition to your Twitter. And I want to say, folks, thanks so much for watching today. I will not be able to do a post-credit scene because I've got to run, but we will have another debate tomorrow night, which will be a juicy one. So don't forget to tune in for that. Hit subscribe for a reminder. And thanks one last time to our guests. See you at the next debate, folks.
Thank you.